Thank you for coming. I'm calling the meeting of the Select Board of Hubbardston, November 4th, 2024, 5:30. Calling it to order. And then the first thing I will be doing is to call to order the public hearing. We are here, the first part of the meeting, to discuss the various warrant items for the special town meeting on November 19th, 2024. Everyone who wishes to speak on an item, because of the time factor, we have there are several of you, and we have at least 11 or 12 more people online. Everyone will get a chance to speak, but you will be limited to 3 minutes for your first time, and you won't get a second time until everyone who wishes to speak has had their first time. And we will be keeping time on you, so please be aware of that, and please don't be upset that you're limited. I would ask, especially with the first item that we're going to be discussing, it's an emotional one, it's a passionate one for many of you and all of us. So please be respectful of everyone when you're speaking, as well as when you're listening to someone else. Treat people the way you would like to be treated, or wish that you could be treated if you would. But I would respectfully ask you to do that. As one thing I was reading the other day, the quote I was going to use here, which I think is very apt. It's acceptable to disagree as long as you're not disagreeable. So with that in mind, we will move to the first item that would be on the agenda for the special town meeting. That's proposal 1. And before we get to the specifics in terms of your questions, etc., we have a presentation from our legal people. Attorney Sam Myers has put together a PowerPoint on the very issue that we are going to be talking about, and sharing information with you and taking your questions. So with that in mind, can you all see this? Because this is Attorney Sam Myers. Are you there?
Yes, Mr. Chair. How are you doing?
Very good. We're ready if you're ready.
Wonderful, yes. So we can go ahead. As just discussed, I'm sure many people here are familiar with this law. It's become somewhat noteworthy in recent weeks since the governor signed an emergency preamble, which made this law effective immediately. We're referring to Chapter 135 of the Acts of 2024. So it was originally signed into law in July. Late July, and then, as noted, in late September, the governor signed an emergency preamble putting it into effect. There is one section of that law, Section 124, that allows municipalities, like the town, to vote through town meeting on a particular part of the law. So we'll be discussing that tonight. So we can go ahead. Of course, we're not giving legal advice right now. We just want to note we're having a discussion about this rapidly evolving area of law. So there you go. We can move to the next slide. So this law changes, Section 124 in particular changes a different chapter, Chapter 269, Section 10. It adds subsection K. Section 10 of Chapter 269 makes various acts a crime, especially possession of firearms in certain places. And we'll talk about a couple others that this law doesn't change, like schools. But this section does a very particular thing. As you'll see in the first bullet point, it creates a list of prohibited areas where it will be a crime to possess a firearm. Among those areas are state, county, and municipal administrative buildings, including the grounds and parking areas thereof. There are a couple definitions within the subsection as to what a administrative building is. We'll talk about one in particular. A few of them that are less relevant because they're a little bit clearer are things like judicial or court administrative buildings that house judicial or court administrative proceedings or correctional services. But also on the list of prohibited areas is a place owned, leased, or under the control of a government body and used for purposes of government administration. And that "and" is very important because, as we'll discuss a little bit too, land that is owned by a state, county, or municipal body and is not used for government purposes, in our opinion, does not fall within this new category of prohibited areas. And there are lots of examples that you can think of, I'm sure, but we'll just focus on those that are. So the law now makes these areas prohibited. You are not allowed to possess firearms in them. However, it gives municipalities the option to exclude their own administrative buildings from the definition of prohibited areas, and therefore it would not be a crime under the new law to possess a firearm within those areas. The subsection sets forth that it's up to the legislative body of the town, and that, of course, is town meeting. So that is what Article 1 puts before town meeting. We can go to the next slide, because I just think it's important to highlight a couple of things that the law doesn't do. Number one, this subsection, the greater. Sorry, did someone say something?
Interrupt you real quick. So for everybody here, I know everyone's looking at this and going, "Oh, why the heck didn't you print that?" The future slides, the ones that are from the town about the articles, will be big enough to see. This all came in from KP Law this afternoon. So I apologize for having to squint. We will make sure this information is available on the town website for everyone. And once again, I apologize about the not being able to read it and not having it available in front of you. But let's make do for now, and I'll make sure all of the information gets out. Thank you. Attorney Myers, my apology.
No, my apologies. Sorry for sending it so late. In all honesty, the law is very new, and we've been having discussions with various stakeholders and doing research. So we sent it late. We're sorry about that. But yes, happy to help circulate this in any way. Just a few things that the law does not change, to be clear. Section 124 is just one part. We're voting on that alone, the town is. Chapter 135 has a huge number of other provisions which tackle various issues that the town doesn't have any option to vote on. Those things alter other aspects of firearms law in the state. 124 doesn't change anything about licensing requirements. For instance, if the town votes to exclude its administrative buildings, it doesn't change the fact that you have to be properly licensed, for instance. Another thing that the law makes clear is that even if the town does not vote to exclude its administrative buildings, it's not unlawful to securely store a firearm in a vehicle in a prohibited area. So you saw that I mentioned that the law also makes it a prohibited area. The grounds or parking areas of prohibited areas. It is not a crime, however, to have your firearm securely stored in your vehicle in those grounds or parking areas. As I noted, this changes nothing about the criminal prohibition on firearms possession in schools and school buildings, as well as polling locations. Schools and school buildings are already addressed under Chapter 269, Section 10J. So this new law adds Section K. J is not affected whatsoever. And as we noted, there, and I'm sorry that you can't see it because I know it gets a little wordy, but the fourth bullet point refers to the fact that this does not create a blanket prohibition for firearms possession in all town-owned or controlled areas. As we discussed a little bit, there are two aspects to what is a prohibited area at the town level. One, it has to be owned, leased, or controlled by the town, a piece of property or an area. And number two, it has to be used for government purposes. So things that fall outside of that definition, there is no blanket prohibition on carrying firearms, possessing firearms in those areas, according to state law. The last thing that I'll note, the last paragraph of the subsection allows towns to further develop policies. So while on some level there is a blanket exclusion that is possible, and as the warrant article that you all have before you, refers to town administrative buildings. So a town can, with one swath, exclude all of its administrative buildings from the definition of prohibited area. It is not prohibited after that, though, according to the law, in our opinion, from developing further policies restricting the possession of firearms in areas under that control. That can mean administrative buildings, or it can mean buildings and areas not used for government purposes, the ones that the law does not create a blanket prohibition on. Towns can say, well, this is a place that we think, shouldn't have firearms, and we're creating a policy in our capacity as the essentially private property holder for that area. Those are all matters of policy discretion that the town, retains complete authority to make decisions on. And that's also true of town meeting with respect to voting on this provision as well. We can go to the next slide. This is sort of our ending point in that and I hope that you can see parts of it. It's a summary. We wanted to address the things that Chapter 135, subsection 124 does. And as I hope you might be able to see, it makes town administrative buildings, for the moment, prohibited places for firearms possession. It does not affect town property not used for government administration. And it also doesn't change anything in schools. And then on the other side of things, I believe we have, this is what a affirmative vote on the town meeting warrant article will do. Town administrative buildings will be excluded from the prohibited areas list, and firearms possession will be allowed as if the law, subsection 124 of Chapter 135, had not been passed with respect to town administrative buildings. So Chapter 135, subsection 124 does something. It creates these prohibited places, and then it gives towns the opportunity and the authority to essentially undo or exempt its own administrative buildings from that new law. And again, the status of schools is unchanged by a town meeting vote, and the status of town property is unchanged too. That is property that is not used for government administration, because in our opinion, those are not things that are addressed or altered by Section 124. So hopefully that adds some clarity. I know some things are confusing because it's a little bit of a double negative. It creates a prohibition and allows for an exclusion. But that's the long and short of it. I understand there might be some questions, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Attorney Myers. He's available all during this question and answer or discussion period, so we can refer to him if we need to, or any of the people here, Town Administrator Nate, Chief Ryan. They will be able to speak on this besides the board members and yourselves. I would like to make clear, in case it's not clear, there'll be no motions or votes taken tonight. That's for the special town meeting. That's where you act as the legislative group to determining this. The purpose of this hearing is to take your questions, take your comments, etc., back and forth to get a sense of where you're at, what you're feeling, and but please don't put forth a motion, because there will be no voting on anything tonight, because that's not the purview of this public hearing, if that's clear. All right. Okay, then we will open it up for discussion. Is there anyone who would like to start?
Can I check something, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Sam, can you talk real quick? I want to see if I'm not sharing my screen when you talk, can the people watching on Facebook hear you? So, 1 second. Sam, if you want to talk.
Testing, hello. Can you hear me?
Kind of creepy. 1 second. Sam, if you want to talk.
He just said test.
Facebook hear you. Kind of creepy. 1 second. Sam, if you want to talk. He just said test. People watching on Facebook, we will do our best to repeat Attorney Myers, and we'll fix it in the future. My apologies again.
Okay. Then before I start with you, just as everybody, when it's your turn, would you please identify you give your name and your address? Appreciate that, okay? Vin, if you would.
Vincent Ritchie, 1 Ed Clark Road. Jeff, would you just clarify the first sentence? It says, vote to exempt the following town administrative buildings. I know we don't have a lot of them, but is there others on the list that should be mentioned in this article?
We have a list of those, don't we? The administrative buildings.
Yes.
There's more than this, but I can give you this so far, and then Nate, if you can call it up more. What would be considered Slade Building, including the offices, police, and senior center, fire station, 48 Gardner Road, Clark Library, town offices, and
DPW, the office of the highway department.
highway department buildings. And anything else?
Nope.
That covers it. The prohibited areas, just to repeat, for anyone who hadn't heard, schools, okay? Any place where voting is taking place, and any place where the ballots are being tabulated. Those are prohibited areas that cannot be changed. Is that okay?
That's fine, it just wasn't listed in.
No,
Yeah.
fine. Yep. Anyone else?
Attorney Myers, can you go into detail as to if we should have or are correct in not outlining in such great detail which areas specifically apply? Like, I know that we have the authority as a municipality to pull certain areas out. Do you believe it would have been in our best interest to list everything, or just allow it to be what it is, all administrative buildings?
Yeah, I mean, on some level, that's definitely a policy determination for town meeting and, the town administrators and select board. We're of the opinion that with respect to town-controlled areas and owned, leased, or controlled areas that are used for government administration, the town is able to exempt them all in one fell swoop. It is also possible to develop a warrant article that refers to certain areas. I know we've also discussed a bit and looked into the issue of buildings that have both government administration purposes and non-government administration purposes, and we can talk a little bit about those specific cases if you'd like. But just in terms of the warrant article addressing all or only some of town buildings, in our opinion, it is a policy determination that both are within the town's ability to discuss and make a decision on. And we'll just note, it's worth saying again that, Hubbardston is really one of the first towns to take up this law, as it's been only recently put into, into law and into towns' abilities to vote on. So there are some things in the law, like this question, that may be developed further in courts or by the state. But as far as we know, as far as the statute is written, it gives towns, some flexibility in making that initial determination in its warrant article. And then also, as we noted, the blanket prohibition or the catch-all at the end, which allows towns, even if they do adopt a blanket exclusion for their administrative buildings, to develop policies further. So there's some flexibility for towns. And I saw just while I saw it as to whether it's a majority or 2/3, and it's a majority.
Yes, for anybody that cannot hear Attorney Myers, the question from Mr. Bratko on Google Meet was, is this...
Ritchie.
No.
No, I'm talking about online.
Oh, okay.
Is this article a simple majority or a 2/3? AKA, how much vote do you need? And the answer from the attorney was a simple majority.
Yes.
Alice Livedall, 96 Mount Jefferson Road. I really strongly oppose this article. I think firearms should be prohibited from municipal offices and public board and committee meetings unless they're carried by a law enforcement officer in those meetings. Massachusetts, it seems to me, has worked really diligently to get this gun legislation passed to better protect public servants and public volunteers at these meetings from potential violence. It was overwhelmingly supported in the legislature. Mr. Durant was one of 3 votes in opposition, very heavily supported by the public. When I read it, I thought, oh, well, this must be because the police office is in the Slade building, and you gotta have, the police need to carry their guns. That's clearly not what you were thinking here, because the 5th article has a specific prohibition that allows officers and employees of the police department to carry guns wherever on town property. So that wasn't your motive. So I'm thinking, what were you thinking that you would want people to bring guns to a public meeting? I say this as the past chair of the planning board, and I have to say, while I chaired that board, there were many contentious meetings. There were a lot of tempers that flared on things like the cell tower, penalties for the gravel pit operation, making a road public, cutting a tree that was a sacred tree under the tree bylaw. There were many people angry at those meetings. And you're going to ask members of the public to come and volunteer to sit on these boards, knowing that the people that are as far away from them as you and me may be armed and sitting in the audience, sitting as the attendees. I just think it's madness. So that's my
Can I
Yeah.
just,
Wait,
there's a problem with this.
recognize
Yeah.
yourself, okay.
Okay, yeah, sorry, Katie Young, 86 Ragged Hill Road. I just want to reiterate to this, I think there's some confusion on what we are bringing to the table. We are bringing to the table the option of the residents to keep the law kind of intact of what was. People could carry guns into all these buildings up until the governor signed her preamble. So my question is, I'm not sure if there's a disconnect. People are unaware that there were residents with license to carry actually bringing guns in here, because there were. Yes, oh yes, there were. It's just concealed. Most people don't walk around with them on your hip. It's not, we don't live in Texas. People carry them concealed under their clothing usually, or in their bags or whatever. Some of the board members that we have on committees do carry concealed. I know they do. I'm very matter of fact they do. So my question is did you not feel safe before? Because if you did in all these meetings and in the senior center and in the town offices and everywhere else, we're asking if you want to keep that same level Or do you want to change it and take away some of your amendment rights that the governor kind of did?
Can I respond?
And that's all, yeah, and that's all, this was a law. I wanted to make that clear because some of the emails and things that we're getting, people were, I think they're unaware that this was legally allowed up until the governor signed her preamble and took it away from all of us, regardless if you're going to carry or not.
Can I
Okay.
respond? Because
Alice, wait a minute.
it was directed though to me. Did I feel unsafe?
All right.
Did I
Well,
know?
in general, does the
But-
people, you aren't the only one, but yes, I understand.
Okay, so I think there's a difference between the fact that there was no policy, basically. It was not a prohibited thing. And now you're saying the Massachusetts legislature, after months and months of deliberation, finally has made public safety of volunteers and municipal employees a priority and said, okay, you cannot bring these weapons into a building. Okay, so now Pat Hubbardston here is going to say, well, we're going to be an exception to that and vote in public broadcast, you can bring your weapons in, we're not one of those towns where it's forbidden. And it would make a difference now. I would not serve on those boards if this passes. Yeah. There was no remedy before that, but the legislators come in and made a remedy to protect our safety.
All right, thank you, Alice. Chris, would you identify yourself?
Sure. Chris Giulio, 24 Simons Hill Road. I just wanted to make something clear. Is places like the rec field, which is a municipal field, okay, and I know that the select board has had meetings there in the past, okay, would that make it exempt from this bill?
According to what, as I recall, we were
Because there is a
talking about
building
that.
on that property.
Yeah,
Attorney Myers?
Yeah, so I heard the question. I believe it was meant that, was it rec field or is that Curtis Field?
Curtis Field, yes.
just one-
yes, Curtis.
Yeah, okay. So we've looked into this issue too, and again, it's very new. So like the definition of an area used for government administrative purposes is developing, and as new laws work, it will come down to perhaps in the future further guidance from the state, regulations, or even court cases interpreting these. Based on our analysis of Curtis Field, I believe town meeting was held there during COVID, and there has since then not been regular government administration ongoing at Curtis Field. I wasn't aware of administrative buildings being there, but please correct me if I'm wrong. It would be our opinion that a place like that is not actively or currently used for government administration purposes, and therefore would not fall into the prohibited areas definition. But as we noted, places that fall outside of the definition are not made automatically a prohibited place, but towns retain authority to develop policies further restricting firearms possession in areas under their control. So it would be our opinion that Curtis Field would not fall automatically within the prohibited areas list. But we should just note as a final matter that going from Curtis Field to another type of place or particular town-owned or controlled area, it will require real fact-intensive inquiry. As has been noted, you know, Curtis Field is a place where town meeting took place. A different type of building that is not usually used for government purposes, but is frequently, you know, there would be some questions about different areas like that. But as far as what I know about Curtis Field, it would not automatically fall under that category.
And that wouldn't be able to be slipped in later on, okay, as, say we needed to hold, you know, God forbid we had another pandemic and we had to hold many meetings there, so they couldn't enact that as being a town area where we would be able to not bring firearms.
Who couldn't enact it?
Would the town just say, okay, well, this is an area now, well, let's make this let's make this a part of the new law that we have.
I don't think as a town that we could enact it unless we're in a state of emergency or something like that. I don't think that's a worry that would be. We do have as it's written, there is a clause that we can make our own policies.
I understand that, right. But there's not gonna be any, what would that need, if you wanted to make your own policy to make
It
that?
would need a town meeting and it would have to be brought before the town and the town would vote on it.
Okay.
Yeah, Jay?
Jay Johnston, 72 Gardner Road. What's going to happen, let's say the town votes and the majority says to follow through with to not follow through with the exemption and stay with the ban on weapons in public buildings. Now, this law that the governor passed is completely illegal, and it will lose in court. What happens when it loses in court? Does this law go away for the public buildings in Hubbardston also? Or do we get stuck with this going on? Because this is going to go to court, and it's going to lose.
If I can let Attorney Meyer speak to this, but my understanding is that if the law that was kind of the vehicle carrying this was then thrown out, we would have nothing to take the buildings out of, because the law or the vehicle would be a moot point.
Thank
Be
you.
repealed in a essence.
So there would be essentially no action because we wouldn't have had a law to act upon.
All right?
So, Mr. Chair, Susan Rain had asked if the police chief was willing to make his opinion known, and then we have two other people with their hands raised online.
Chief Kuchar?
Yeah, I don't really have an opinion as to what as to what the law is, or, what the law is what the law is, and how it's written. As police officers, we have to act on what the law is, so until there's a vote at town meeting to either continue with this law or exempt the town buildings from that, I mean, that's all there really is. I don't think my personal opinion on gun-free zones or anything like that is relevant.
Fair enough.
Ms. Rain, was there any other part of your question that you wanted to come before I lower your hand? She lowered her own hand. So.
Okay. Thank you, Sue.
Anyone in-house, and if not, Danielle Arkalinen? Arkalian. Hi, Danielle, go ahead.
Is she live?
All right, Danielle, when you can, just raise your hand again if you would like.
Did she type something?
Go ahead, Mr. Chair.
Oh, is there anyone who would like to be next with any questions on this? Seeing, okay,
Is Danielle going to speak?
excuse me?
Is this person going to speak?
No.
Apparently not. Okay, so, all right, Vin, go ahead.
Vincent Ritchie, 1 Clark Road. I want to state my qualifiers that I've been a responsible gun owner for well over 50 years. And I've hunted in this town for at least 45, and I'm still active at it. So I think I've had some experience with gun ownership, and it's very dismaying to see what's happened in our society over the last several years. Terrible. And I'm not going to speak to the value or the quality of the law. However, I don't think it's prudent for the town of Hubbardston to exempt and be one of the first to exempt from this law and tempt the fate that may occur. We sit here, and if you want to see what type of activity there has to be every morning and afternoon coming out of that school next door, I would hate to think that somebody came in, got in an argument with maybe the police chief or the tax collector and walked out the side door and went, oh, a school bus. This is just not prudent to exempt our administrative buildings in this climate. It's just not something that I don't think the town should do, because I think it would be held, the town would be held liable. And, you know, we've seen the Sandy Hook cases and several others where the legal, the civil suits are just astronomical. And quite frankly, I may not agree with the law, but I just don't think the town of Hubbardston needs to put ourselves in the way, in the firing line, if you will, of a lawsuit or a tragedy. And across the street, just as a similarity, 25 years ago, we were seeing lots and lots of news articles about people going postal, primarily the postal employees. Once they put that ban that prohibited all firearms in postal facilities, things quieted down a little bit. So I'm not saying we're gonna have a problem, I certainly hope we don't. However, again, I just don't think it's prudent for the town of Hubbardston to put ourselves in a situation where we could be liable for some terrible tragedy that I pray never happens.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Danielle, but you'll need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I know, that's what caused me to get disconnected last time.
It's okay,
Danielle
we can hear you
Aracelian,
now.
36 High Street in Hubbardston. Thank you. I'm just wanting to make sure this is clear, that in our current town, in our own guidelines, weapons are prohibited in town offices and buildings. So Katie is misspeaking or isn't aware, but I sent a screenshot of that to Nate, and I can send it to the rest of the board if you'd like. But our current laws do not allow to carry in any of our town offices. Our current guidelines, I guess.
How did you send me a screenshot of something? Right there.
I did. I already sent it. You should look in your email. And it's right on hubbardstonmass.us. I think it's under employment policy and harassment and safety. Clearly prohibited.
It's prohibited by employees. Like, yes, you're correct.
But I mean, when you read it, it actually reads as though weapons are prohibited from town offices. The assumption would be that the weapons wouldn't be there, which means also, I mean, Katie's talking about select board members or other members of boards carrying their concealed weapons. They're employees. It's prohibited.
I would be wanting to pass. I don't know the legal answer, and I don't know if it's super relevant to figure out right now the relevance of our personnel bylaws
But when the argument
versus a residential concern. But duly noted, ma'am. Thank you very much.
No, but when the conversation is that it's currently allowed, when honestly the assumption would be that it probably isn't currently known and allowed. So there's a difference between how you're wording that.
Well, right now, it's not currently allowed because it was taken away regardless.
Okay, regardless of the state law, I'm talking about our website has not been updated. That rule was already in place for employees prior to this mask gun law.
For employees, yes.
Well, but I still think the assumption by most people, and I think Alice is a pretty good indicator of it, is we all just kind of assumed you didn't bring guns to town meetings or to town offices.
There is room for interpretation in that there is a ban in the town personnel bylaws.
Right.
No regulations. Yes.
But not the general public.
Yes, but there's no mention of firearms prohibition in the general bylaws, or zoning bylaws, or town charter.
Well, we'll have to agree to disagree on the way that is worded and how that presents itself.
I don't have any agreement or disagreement at all. I'm just stating, like you did, that is a good, I'm glad you brought that up, Danielle.
Okay.
All right.
Continue on.
All right, thank you very much. Identify yourself, please.
Tom Robinson, 5 Brigham Street. I suggest you ask the lawyer what a town employee is. My understanding is it includes all volunteers and people of that nature, not just the payroll.
Attorney Myers, did you hear the question?
Yes, I did. So it's a great point raised. My understanding, I'm somewhat familiar with this policy as it applies to town employees. My understanding is that it is a policy of the towns that has created this now past prohibition, because the point was raised that, under the new law that has now been via emergency preamble signed into law, this policy question becomes somewhat moot because the state law supersedes any current or past policy of the town of Hubbardston. I would need to do a little bit more of a fact-based research into exactly what the policy covered. Under certain laws, select board members and volunteers can certainly be considered municipal employees. It's not necessarily immediately apparent to me whether the policy that the town previously had in place used that broad definition or a more specific definition. It is worth noting that that policy existed, and certainly it seemed applied to certain town employees, if not all of them. But we are in a new place with the law recently having been signed into law via emergency preamble, which would obviously preempt the town's own policy. Now, if the town does vote to exclude its administrative buildings, there would be, further employment discussions and policies that would need to be developed in order to determine whether the town, wanted to have the same sort of policy, blanket policy for visitors to town hall, employees in town administrative buildings, and so on and so forth. It would be our opinion that it would be the town's ability to craft a policy to fit its goals, should it vote to exclude its administrative buildings.
Thank you, Attorney Myers.
All right.
Tom, was that the end of your question for now?
Well, did I use my turn?
Excuse me?
Did he use his
Did I
turn?
use up my turn?
Well, the first one, okay?
Oh, boy.
What,
Asked a question and made a
is
clarification.
it about the same issue?
No,
It's
he,
about the topic we're talking about.
yeah, he was
All right,
looking
go
for
ahead, go ahead,
clarification.
Me?
go ahead.
Okay. Tom Robinson, 5 Brigham Street. As a private citizen, I'm here tonight, not as a member of any boards or a volunteer. The purpose of this law is to increase public safety and advance our community and the whole state, in fact, to a more safe condition by reducing the potential for gun-related violence. Massachusetts laws are indeed effective. Massachusetts has the second lowest rate of gun violence in the U.S. And this has only been accomplished through the efforts of responsible gun owners, responsible hunters, common sense gun laws, and legislative action. Just because we're relatively low, there's only one state with less gun-related violence, that's Rhode Island. But we're relatively low, but there's still more to be done. There's no sense hanging there when there's still 111 people shot and killed in Massachusetts every year. The Massachusetts Medical Society has long recognized gun violence as a public health issue. The Massachusetts Medical Society policies work to ensure preventable deaths, disabilities, and injuries, and they strongly supported this law. Massachusetts has the lowest societal cost of gun violence in the U.S. The other night I was at the candidates' night meeting, and everybody was talking about $1 billion being spent inappropriately in some people's eyes. I'd like to report that gun violence in the U.S. is $503 per resident every year. Gun deaths and injuries in Massachusetts cost, you ready? $3.5 billion. People don't heal for free, of which $85 million is paid for by the taxpayers. 85 million paid for by taxpayers. This is, of course, relatively low compared to other states. Mississippi has a rate of gun deaths and injuries 10 times as high as Massachusetts. But that doesn't mean Massachusetts can relax. More needs to be done. Taking exception to this law by using an exemption related to public sensitive areas undermines the intent of the law and fails to provide increased public safety and exposes citizens, both Hubbardston citizens and any visitors, to potential gun violence by allowing guns into town administrative buildings and grounds. Regarding the word grounds, I don't believe you can go anywhere on this town parcel and not consider it part of the school. There are no sub-parcels. There are no library grounds, school grounds, playgrounds that are defined by law or by the deeds. So this entire grounds should be exempt under the provision of school. Excuse me, I've lost my place. Taking exception to the law by using an exemption related to public sensitive areas undermines the intent of the law and fails to provide increased public safety and exposes citizens, both Hubbardston and any visitors, to potential gun violence by allowing guns onto the town administrative buildings and grounds. Schools and voting places and associated grounds are recognized as sensitive locations. And by the word recognized, I mean recognized by the Supreme Court of the United States, and are protected areas. In Hubbardston, the school grounds encompass the entirety of the property on which the school sits. Town administrative offices, senior center, play areas, library, police stations are located. We understand there's an exemption for the police, and that's certainly appropriate. I honor it. I welcome it. There are no non-school and non-voting areas in this parcel. The attached Massachusetts property maps illustrate the areas the school should be a prohibited area. I printed out the property map. I'm going to give a copy to your clerk, so she has it. A copy up to you guys. There's the parcel. I'm sorry, wrong map. I don't have an extra copy of that readily available. I'll give it to you in a second. The attached maps illustrate the areas that should be prohibited areas and thus not included in any exemption. 7 Main Street, that's where we stand today. Curtis Recreation Field, I don't think there's any doubt that there are some what I might call heated discussions at rec fields. 48 Gardner Road, the new building, and I think we should consider the Highway Department and the Route 68 Fire Department, one up on the end of Main Street. Enforcement of any exemption would be very difficult. Changes to the law should be pursued through the ballot question process, which is presently underway. We have had voting activity on all 3 of the mapped areas, plus the Highway Department building. We had a school vote down at the Highway Department. We had town meeting up at the rec field. I believe there's also some provision in the law, and I couldn't find it before tonight, about where alcohol is served. And I believe there's alcohol served at the rec field on, what do they call it? Field day?
Hubbardston Fair.
Pardon me?
Under a one-day liquor license,
Yeah.
there is occasionally alcohol served at areas in which a one-day license may be issued.
And in order to consider this warrant properly, I think the planning board or the select board should immediately issue a list of all the candidate town-owned properties from which we can pick as a menu to allow some and disallow others. For instance, I think the Hubbardston State Forest is a huntable area. They can carry guns there. There's many examples of that.
It is
Yeah,
appropriate.
Tom, we need to move on.
Well,
We need to move on in terms of your time.
I'm done.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mrs. Rain.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
All right, I think I'm muted. Can you
are
hear me?
unmuted.
But you're breaking up.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great.
You're breaking
All right,
up.
well, let me see. My question is short. Then read my chat.
I already asked the police chief how he felt.
I have another question in there.
All right, I'll read your chat.
All right, if you can hear me, how does the proximity of the center school to our administrative buildings affect any exemption approved under this article? The question is for the select board and for the attorney.
The question at hand is, how does the proximity of the center school to our administrative buildings affect any exemption approved under this article? Attorney Myers.
Yeah, so I mean, a really great question, a challenging question. I believe that the previous speaker raised this as well, because in towns that have centralized areas where school and government buildings are very close to one another, of course, polling places or tabulation of votes often occurs at places that otherwise could be considered prohibited areas, and therefore then would be excluded. But if you exclude an area that is nonetheless a polling or a vote tabulation place, it remains a prohibited area during the time it's used for polling or tabulation of ballots. So that's an easier question. I think the more challenging question arises in the context of school grounds, because, as I mentioned, Chapter 269, Section 10J makes it illegal to carry a firearm in any school building, in any school, or on the grounds of said schools. Based on my understanding of the Hubbardston example, there is arguably a ton of closeness to, and as one speaker suggested, kind of an intersection of or an overlapping of school and town-owned grounds. That would require really deep fact-based inquiry. I haven't seen the property maps that have been mentioned. The law obviously allows the exemption within town-owned administrative buildings. So if the suggestion is that, a building that is not used at the time for tabulation of votes or polling, a polling location, let's just remove that example for the moment. If the suggestion is a building could be on the grounds of a school, it would be, and we don't want to say one way or another without a court saying so, but you could see some real challenges if with the law's implementation, if the building couldn't be exempt simply by the virtue of being, close to the grounds of the school. Okay. Just got the notification it's being recorded. So that would be our stance. These are obviously fluid determinations that we might get more guidance on from the state or a court in the future. There are really clear examples, or we should say exceptions, when town-owned administrative buildings that otherwise would be excluded are used as vote tabulation or polling places. With respect to schools that are very close to town-owned buildings, I'm not sure if the analysis would come out the same way, that the proximity to the school means it's necessarily on school grounds. The building, if it's separate enough or just separate and has its own grounds, the building would then probably not be considered a part of the school grounds. But, we're happy to review these questions more in depth based on, the sorts of things it seems were passed out at the meeting and any future inquiries.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? All right, again, Chris, go ahead.
Okay. This is the last time I'm gonna get up, okay? I promise.
It's all right.
Chris Giglios, 24 Simons Hill Road. As some of you know, I've been law enforcement for 25 years as a firearms instructor and a civilians firearms instructor. And I do not think that the town should have any prohibited areas as far as municipal buildings. Okay, so in this building right now, if this was to go forward, then we wouldn't be able to carry in this. I know that I'm exempt from it. Okay, I look around this room right now and I see some damn good shots in here. Okay, if you removed Ryan from this picture, Chief from this picture, okay, and he was not here, and we all know that the mentally unstable are the only ones that pull guns out in public areas and shoot. We can all agree on that. Okay, and if somebody was to do that in this room right now, if they had, whatever magazine, okay, they could kill a lot of people. But if there was a few of us in here, okay, and I can point out people that are good shots, we'd be able to take that person right out before anybody else was harmed. So by eliminating firearms from the premise, okay, and I worked with Chief Glidden on this for many years, okay, stopping the school shooter. Okay, if you remove the firearm from the premise, then everybody in that area becomes a victim. Okay, once the firearm is there, okay, then nobody knows who has a firearm. And if somebody was to be mentally unstable and stand up and start shooting, that person would be taken out as quick as possible. Okay, they wouldn't do it if he was sitting here. Okay, but he can't go to every meeting. Okay, he's got other things to do. So I'm just saying that I don't think any areas in town should be prohibited. Okay, yes, the schools, okay, the post office, but we all agree that nut jobs pull guns out in public and start shooting. Okay, everywhere. A sane-minded person, okay, with the mental capacity of a normal human being, does not do that. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Sir, I recognize you.
Stephen Smith, Comet Pond Road in Hubbardston. I don't want to get into a debate with what this gentleman just said and everybody else about the pros and cons of where guns shouldn't be. I do want to clarify this Article 1, it's being voted on. It says it exempt the following, and it's already brought up, there's no list yet. But is this an all or nothing thing? Or at that meeting, could I, for instance, make a motion that said building by building, this one yes, that one no?
Yes, you could make a motion. You could make a motion about a specific building too, as opposed to that. But yes, that's where the motions would have to be made by the town, is at the town meeting.
So for right now, it's pretty much everything, subject to whatever the list is. But whether or not people said, for instance, the library or any other building, it could be brought up on a case-by-case motion at that meeting.
So at this time, yes, your opportunity as a civilian and member of town meeting, the legislative body of the town of Hubbardston, would be to bring up motions and amendments to articles on the town meeting floor. What we are doing here tonight is that residents can make their public opinion known to the select board, who has not finalized the warrant as of this exact moment. That is something that will likely happen later tonight. But this is the select board publicly acknowledging that there is a draft warrant out there and hearing your thoughts. If you have thoughts on buildings that should or should not fall into prohibition or not prohibition, the language in here is convoluted to say the least. So it's a little bit hard to work with and completely understand, but I can speak for everybody here that it is not accepted at this moment. It is not finalized. If anyone has any thoughts on what should and should not be within the article, let it be known.
So can I head into that?
If Mr. Chair
Yes,
will.
go ahead.
Then I would just like to say, as several others have been, I don't think it's behooves Hubbardston to be among the first to challenge and create exceptions for a law that's been put in place by, I won't say wise or anything, but a larger bodies and then more discussion than we've had here.
If there's no one else with a first comment, there are, Ms. Rain, we'll get back to you.
Yeah, no. Okay. Mike?
Mike Foley, 12 Pittsville Road. To this gentleman's point about firearms training and so forth, in order to get a license to carry a concealed weapon, one has to go through a significant number of hurdles, including visiting with the chief and going through lots of training. You will find that most of the gun laws that are in place in Massachusetts are specifically targeted towards legal gun owners. Legal gun owners have to jump through hoops. I mean, just crazy amount of rules that they have to know. I mean, you know, you can't carry a gun on a Tuesday with a blue moon type of level of insanity. Bad people with guns, crazy people with guns, disturbed people with guns don't go through the process to get a gun legally. And with that, I'll just end with this comment by a gentleman from the beginning of our country. Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. That's from Ben Franklin. So while we can declare things are gun-free zones and say, oh, we're all safe, no, you're not. You're safe from legal gun owners. You're not safe from bad people. Thank you.
Do we have any others? Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mike Stahl, 5 Lombard Road. I'm not going to make any opinions or have any questions. I started with 2 statements of fact. I've expanded it to 3, and then I'll make a request. Number 1 fact, I have an LTC, and it was approved locally. Number 2 is I serve on a couple of public committees. Number 3, I'm not a very good shot. My request is that the issue of public employee, volunteer, people that serve on committee boards, etc., is that by the town meeting that you at least have a partial response to whether or not boards and committee members, volunteers, fall under the category of employees. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Stoll. I was there prior to you mentioning it. I had that on my priority list.
Good. We think a lot alike.
So you have that down?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? And anyone else online?
No
Trish?
one else online. Mostly that they can't hear. But
Oh, they can't,
we'll
yeah.
fix it for the next Facebook Live. I promise.
Susan had another.
I think Susan has a comment.
Yeah, I believe her comment's going to be, the law in this article speaks to firearms. What is the definition of a firearm? And are all firearms to be allowed under this article? Attorney Myers.
Yeah, so section 124, if you happen to take a look at it, the crime of possession in a prohibited place refers to section 121 of chapter 140, which is another section. As part of the acts of chapter 135 of the acts of 124, much earlier on in this large bill, that definition is right in there. I can read it to you, but it's right in there. It covers a number of different types of firearms. If you're interested, happy to read it if need be, but it's right there for you.
Please read it.
I'd like you to read it,
I'll
Susan
read
said.
it. Okay, I have it. So it's not too lengthy. Okay. Under Mass General Law, definition of firearm. Pursuant to Section 20 of Chapter 135, firearm is defined as follows. Firearm, a stun gun, pistol, revolver, rifle, shotgun, sawed-off shotgun, large capacity firearm, assault style firearm, machine gun, loaded or unloaded, which is designed to or may readily be converted to expel a shot or bullet. The frame or receiver of any such firearm, or the unfinished frame or receiver of any such firearm, provided However, that firearm shall not include any antique firearm or permanently inoperable firearm. In addition, Chapter 135 includes a separate definition for assault-style firearm in Section 16, antique firearm in Section 15, as well as other firearm definitions as set forth. Covert firearm, a firearm placed in a camouflaging firearm container, or a firearm that is not a stun gun, that is capable of discharging a bullet or shot and is constructed in a shape that does not resemble a firearm, or is not immediately recognizable as a firearm, including but not limited to zip guns, concealed bolt guns, folding guns, and any other firearm that resemble keychains, pens, canes, wallets, flashlights, cigarette lighters, cigarette packages, flare guns, pellet guns, BB guns, conversion kits. Curio or relic firearms, firearms which are of special interest to collectors because they possess some qualities not ordinarily associated with firearms intended for sporting use or as offensive or defensive firearms. Lastly, deceptive firearm device. Any device that is intended to convey the presence of a firearm that is used in the commission of a violent crime and that presents an objective threat of immediate death or serious bodily harm to a person of reasonable and average sensibility.
Excuse me, Jeff, what's the revision on that? What's the date? Do they have one?
No, this was presented to me by KP Law because I requested it for this meeting, so it would, I guess.
Under Mass law, firearms are considered handguns only in Massachusetts.
Well, I'm reading, okay.
Okay.
Attorney Myers?
Can you just repeat that last comment?
Your last comment?
In Massachusetts, the definition of firearm is a handgun only. Okay, and that revision came up from September of 1998. Okay, and that was the last time it's been revised.
So I understand that might be the law until this new law. Subsection 124 refers specifically to section 121 of chapter 140, which did contain the previous definition of firearm. The new law, chapter 135, contains an updated definition of firearm, which was just read. That was the first definition that was read. Those separate definitions including curio and relic firearms, covert firearms, those are kind of additional definitions, but the definition of firearms itself has changed according to the new law.
Okay. All right, anyone else have anything?
I know it's second time.
Okay, go ahead, Alice.
I just want to say, again, Alice Lipdahl, 96 Mount Jefferson Road. I just want to say this section also says the penalty for this is if you carry any kind of these firearms that were just listed into a prohibited area, is punished by a fine of not more than $1,000 or imprisonment in the House of Corrections for not more than 2.5 years. So I think that you don't have to put metal detectors at the door. You do not need to make a lot of money. You just need to, if you want to see this enforced, you put that sign on the public buildings. Firearms are not prohibited in this building under penalty of law, and I think it would be effective.
Did you say are not or?
Are not, if it passes, then they are allowed, all the things you just read, right? But if you were to pass it, the argument that it would put a burden on the public by trying to enforce it, I think it's not, I think it's a red herring, is what I'm saying. And I also think that you should really take into consideration, there are a lot of people like me that wouldn't serve on a board, especially if they moved to a new town, which I did from the city 5 years ago, would not agree. It will have a chilling effect if people know that we have a policy in this town that if you serve on a board, the attendees can bring a firearm to that meeting or committee meeting. It will have a chilling effect, and I think you should consider that in your deliberation. Are you gonna ask people who wanna volunteer to take that risk?
Thank you. Anyone else? Do you have any others on?
I do not, sir.
Anyone on the board like to have any comments?
I actually, I have to. I can't sit here and be quiet. Under the general laws of firearms, I mean, I just want to point out that sawed-off shotguns are illegal. Okay, so I don't even know why they're listed on here. Maybe they're listing it for the people without a gun license to carry around. Assault-style firearms, those are basically illegal now. Machine guns, unless you have a federal firearms license, you cannot have a machine gun. So, this confuses me a little on the definition, but I didn't write it, so I just wanted to point that out. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Last chance.
There was a raised hand.
Okay.
There are 2 machine gun license holders in Hubbardston. I can provide a site. Susan Rain.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, sir. Again, identify yourself.
I'm sorry, that last comment just blew it out of my mind till
I couldn't. I'm sorry.
You're good? All right.
until I remember, I
Okay.
lost it when I heard that.
Yeah, like I said, they're illegal unless you have a federal firearms license. You cannot own a machine gun.
Yes.
Steve Smith, Comet Pond. The, that you said earlier, you think sometime tonight or sometime relatively soon, the board will have made the determination of
Right after
what
this.
the language of this will be. How soon will we, general public, be able to access to see what exactly came out of this?
Depending on how late I'm here tonight, early tomorrow morning.
So it'll be posted?
Yeah. So what we're doing tonight is the select board will finalize the warrant. I'm not expecting a ton of changes unless they pull or kind of surprise me with changes, but by tomorrow morning I will be able to scan in the signed document and it will be posted by one of the constables. Usually by noon, one of the constables comes by.
So it'll be available. And then is it kind of
We're working within a fairly short period of time because the notice has to be posted within at least 14 days ahead of the town meeting. So we have 2 or 3 days to do everything that we need to do.
And just as a point of interest, is there any provision for weighing in on this on a town meeting when you physically cannot be there?
This.
Could you restate the question? I didn't catch it back here, sorry.
I'm asking if there's any provision for someone to vote on the Article 1 and any other articles if they can't physically be at town meeting.
Not that I'm aware of.
During the pandemic, the legislation and guidance didn't allow people to vote remotely for a town meeting. It's just not something that has been done yet. If there was to be a vote on this type of matter, it would have to be a ballot referendum. So.
All right.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Vin?
Just to qualify Mr. Smith's question, what about if you're not able to make town meeting, are you able to submit a comment?
Comment yes, vote no.
Okay, anyone else? That being the case, I'd like to thank all of you for your time and respect shown everybody, and we appreciate you voicing your opinions on both sides. But at this particular point in time, then, I will adjourn the public hearing.
Sir, there are 9 other.
Oh.
Yeah, we still gotta keep going. We gotta keep going.
And those are my favorite
I'm talking,
ones.
excuse me, I'm talking about.
We're just done with
My
one.
bad, on proposal 1. So we will be moving on to the second warrant. So apparently, if you are here just for that, then you.
The next one's a doozy.
Thank you.
We're defining dog catcher.
No? Everybody's leaving. So much fun.
We'll take a minute.
Sorry,
Our feelings aren't hurt, if you will.
after being threatened on the phone.
The rest of you are,
Nita, we all set with Attorney Myers? Is he all set to hop off?
Yep, thank you, Sam. You're appreciated. And Brian as well.
Thank you, guys.
thank you, Attorney.
Have a great night.
Appreciate it. Okay, then we'll proceed with,
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
going with our meeting. So, Article 2, amendment to animal control officer definition in the town bylaws. Nate, would you like to?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Comment on
This
that?
is a riveting bylaw, a absolute stunner. It is a proposal to define the animal control officer's responsibility in accordance with Chapter 140, subsection 136A to 174F. This will clarify the officer's authority, improve animal control effectiveness, ensure compliance with state regulations, and promote responsible animal management practices. AKA, simply put, this aligns the bylaws in the town of Hubbardston with state guidelines, and was requested by the animal control officer just so that they had the same jurisdiction in every community. Any questions?
Any questions?
No one wants to define animal control officer or any of the...
Ship it.
Okay, then we'll move to Article 3, the police cruiser replacement. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This article would allocate $65,000 from capital stabilization for a new police cruiser for the chief. I will allow the chief to speak to his request himself, but the vote would require 2/3 majority as it is utilizing a stabilization account. Chief Kuchar?
So I want to replace 2016 Chevy Impala that I currently drive. It is not really a suitable vehicle for me to be responding to emergencies in. I'd go to a lot more calls as a chief than I have had to probably in the past, backing up my officers when they're working alone and things like that. The car that I have now does have a leak in the trunk, and I lost a lot of equipment due to that leak. We've been trying to fix it, but we've been unable to fix it recently. So, like I said, it's a 2016 Chevy Impala. It's got almost 80,000 miles on it. I'd like to get a Tahoe, but I'm looking at a Blazer because the Tahoe is a lot more expensive. It's about $20,000 more than that. So, getting the Blazer is a little more affordable. I'd have an all-wheel drive vehicle so I can respond to things in the wintertime. Getting this now, as opposed to in the future, we can save a little bit of money because the where I'd be getting the cruiser from has a 2024 leftover, and 2025s are a lot more expensive. So that's why we put it on for this.
Thank you, Ryan.
I believe it is duly, would be remiss if I did not note that even contractually, the chief is obligated to come in. He is essentially a working foreman within the department when times of emergency come up, and whether it is winter, summer, he does need reliable transportation to be able to get to an emergency.
Are there any questions on that? Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mike Stahl, 5 Lombard Road. Is it possible that the warrant article be changed to indicate the specific vehicle that the chief referred to, the Blazer? Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anything else on this one? All right, we'll move to Article 4, allocation for civic optimized implementation. Nate, also.
Article 4, I could talk about Article 4 for the next hour and a half. And if Article 4 is a pet project I've been calling Hub Connect. It is a effort to streamline and create efficiencies in our town operations through utilizing not new to creation, but new to Hubbardston websites and efficiency tools to do all of our permitting online. It would create workflows in the legislative process, create a see-click-fix solution for residents that we would then be able to tailor budgets to the data on the back end of, and the tool will allow us to connect third-party services through app connection tools. And my intention here is to not remove face-to-face constituent service, but enhance it by allowing the community to kind of enhance our ability to serve you digitally. It allows staff to focus more on higher priority projects that we may have not been able to get to in the past, thus creating immediate return on investment by allowing staff to do more with less. The two parts of this project that I am going to be looking for at this time, it is a phased project that will be outlined in a report from the Collins Center coming out in the next month or so, are the purchase of a product by the same company that we do our website with that would optimize all of our services, and a switch to Microsoft Office 365 with Power Automate connectivity from our Google Workspace services that we're currently utilizing. This would offer a great level of training because we are in a unique situation that we will be able to use our grant-funded partnership with the Collins Center, an upcoming grant-funded partnership with the same entity, and potentially a grant from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for essentially what we're funding right now. So there is a high chance that this will, if approved, end up going back to the budget anyhow. So I am going to be asking for support in this. This is approximately 1/4 of the total cost, but the remainder is funded through grant funding and annual budget opportunities. The whole annual scope of this is net neutral, meaning year over year, but there is this initial investment. Thank you.
What's the amount?
$20,000.
Yeah.
Anything else? All right, moving to Article 5, allocation for e-codification services.
Article 5 is sponsored by myself, the town clerk, and the planning board. This would take the zoning bylaws, the general bylaws in the town charter, have them legally reviewed and have them e-codified, meaning to bring them online. This would also streamline the process of bylaw amendments by ensuring that we are within our legal ramifications and that they are changed appropriately and in a proper living version. There have been a lot of people that have touched the current Word version of the living bylaws. It's not exactly how I would securely manage such a precious document, which is why I'm hoping to be able to e-codify and legally review the bylaws as are in Article 5.
Any comments or questions? Vin?
Not directly to this article, but going back to Article 2, Mr. Boudreau's comments and the way this is, excuse me, Article 5 is written. I'd like to just ask if the Article 2 could be edited and add the town general bylaws to the title of that, because there is no reference to the animal control officer in zoning, and sometimes people think that it is.
Yes, sir.
It's strictly the general bylaws, so maybe that could be edited to just reflect that.
Received. I have no problem with that as long as the select board has no problem with that.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? All right, move to Article 6, landfill testing and mowing reimbursement.
Long story short, there has been a capped landfill for 40 years. The Board of Health is still mandated to test and mow that. I am currently in the process of working with the Board of Health to determine what type of deal we can come to in terms of the town proper paying for certain things and the Board of Health revolving, which means the money that comes in through fines, fees, and licensures. Of who pays for this? We're working, and one of the kind of deals we could come to right now was that the town would seek to reimburse the Board of Health for this $5,290, and we would move forward from there. They did pay the testing fee last year out of revolving funds. It is something we have asked the state several times to reconsider, or at least consider some sort of opportunity that the state could aid in helping with payment. But I do believe that, well, I know for a fact that Hubbardston's not the only community going through this type of issue, so that would likely be a very expensive undertaking for the state, and it would not just be Hubbardston. So this is $5,290 available funds from free cash for landfill testing in fall of 2024 right now.
Any questions on that? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure if I've asked this question before. Nate, is there a life for the landfill? What is it, 90 year, or is it 100 year? Are we gonna pay for this for another 300 years? What's the deal?
I am not aware of the length of the commitment.
There has
but
to be.
I will get you to that.
Yeah, thank you. There's gotta be some sort of cutoff at some point where everything, I don't know how long, I can only imagine what's in there, right? How long it takes to decay, but, plastic doesn't ever decay, I don't think. So, if we're gonna spend $5,000 a year for the next 100 years, I can see that going up every year.
This is half.
So
we're spending $10,000 a year.
Oh,
The Board of Health revolving fund paid the first half of this annual.
And the price slowly creeps up every year. You're welcome.
So we could be sitting on another $1 million a year if we're gonna go another
Forever.
100 years.
I got you.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Vin?
Crazy.
Vin Ritchie, 1 Clark Road. When I was on the Board of Health, the cost for that review of the landfill was over $9,000. Is that going to be the second half of the payment?
It's about 10.5, so
Okay.
this is half.
So there was a couple of things I objected to when I was on the board, and I still do. And I think the town needs to look at it very seriously. First and foremost, this is not our land. This is owned by the DCR. It's up off of New Templeton Road. It's been there for, well, probably 40 years at the moment. And the testing includes methane as well as mowing and everything else. And we requested DCR when I was on the planning board to allow us, the town, to put a solar farm on that particular plot of land. It would work out fine. It was not very large, but they flat out refused. And I just don't think at this point it's necessary for the town to continue this obligation. And there has to be some type of way to avoid this continual. The law is very clear. If you own the land, you own the problem underneath it. And so I don't know why the state continues to focus on us, but I think it's just an extraordinary expense we shouldn't have to pay.
And just for the good of the order, and thank you, Mr. Ritchie, Board of Health Chair Kathy Hansgate did write a letter to several state entities, I believe signed by the entirety of the Board of Health, asking almost that exact question: what can be done, what can we do, will you pay for this? And it very much fell on deaf ears. So.
What if we just didn't pay it?
Anything else on this one? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Article 7, transfer of DPW garage roof repair funds.
Town meeting of 2023 approved a capital project that replaced the roof at the DPW highway garage. I believe it was in the area of $50,000. That project came in short, and there was $6,330 remaining. This article would take that $6,330 and allow the DPW to utilize it. This comes after a year where the DPW did take some cuts in their operating budget to balance the budget last year.
Any comments or questions on that?
Just a comment. Nate, to be clear, I think what you said was a little bit convoluted. The project for the roof came in under budget?
Yes,
is that
under
correct?
budget.
And the 6330 we had allocated for that project, but we found out we didn't need it because the project came in under budget for the roof.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? All right, we'll move to Article 8, payment of prior year bills. Okay.
This one is what it is.
Any comments, questions? All right. Article 9, plowing a private way, Plumtree Lane.
Nate, so what are the specific bills?
Back to Article 8.
Haywood Medical Group, $640. Onboarding physicals. There is an $898 debt for a prior year police grant that it is for police vests and...
Nate?
Yes.
Nate or Jeff?
What?
Did she not hear us?
So it appears she can't hear us.
Heather, can you hear us?
I heard the first two. If there was a third, I did not. So
No.
the police grant and Haywood Medical, I heard.
Yep, and then Grasshopper Yard...
Sometimes your audio drops.
Grasshopper Yard Grooming for an unpaid bill related to the plowing of Plumtree Lane. More Haywood Hospital bills for ambulance restock, totaling $2,257.
That's the total of all the bills,
Yep.
not the ambulance. Okay. All right on that, Heather? We lost her again.
I think that's too far away from us.
No, the internet is cutting in and out.
Okay.
It is?
Yes.
Thank you, Spectrum.
If that's not enough and eventually we hear from you again, we'll go back. But moving on to Article 9, plowing of private
you.
way, Plumtree Lane.
Over the past few weeks, maybe months at this point, we have been discussing with the residents of private ways that there is a private way plowing policy on the books. For approximately 8 to 10 years, that policy was not acknowledged, and the residents of Plumtree Lane were receiving plowing services from the community under the DPW budget. The last time the community took up this initiative, I believe, was in 2014. The policy states that the town will do it every 3 years. I would like to believe that this was a mixture of turnover and pandemic that allowed us, that had the town miss the every 3-year guidance, but it was brought to our attention by the director of the highway department, and once it was aware, we made it we went out and asked all of the private ways who wanted to be plowed. Several applied. 2 met the qualifications in the guidance. The select board then did move them forward since they met the guidance, and now they are moving forward to town meeting to seek funding. Plumtree Lane would be seeking 1 year because there is a issue that the town is looking into in terms of ownership of the road. It is not a private way, whereas a normal private way meets in the middle and you abut your abutters directly. There is a parcel, the street, owned by a former developer that we are looking to get in contact with if he is still with us. So the town is seeking some time to figure that out, but it did not seem appropriate to after approximately 10 years of plowing the road, you say, hey, right, November 4th, you're on your own, figure it out. So that's what this article is looking to fund. The next article, Article 10, same for Printers Brook Road. It would be $11,400 for 3 years of plowing, because it was a traditional private way where there was no questions about the middle of the road.
Questions or comments? Just Ben?
I'll wait in case anybody else wants to make comment first.
I have a question on Article 10, please.
Go ahead.
Is the entirety of the contract for 3 years $11,400, or is it $11,400 per year?
The entirety of the contract is $11,400.
Thank you.
Jim Gregorio, 159 Old Westminster Road. I've lived in town 37 years now, and our dirt road is just prior to Streeter on the opposite side. In all those years, I've basically kept the road open, plowed it, and we've had a discussion just recently about all the other individuals that live on the road, for them to pitch in so we can maintain the road and bring it up to a better, better status. We see Streeter Road being maintained like 3 times a year. This particular year, regraded, magnesium chloride put down, rolled. It's in awesome shape. And one of the conditions for the plowing of private ways is be open to public use. Now, our road is basically a dead end. There's no cul-de-sac, but just curious, if we brought the road up to a better condition, would the town consider that?
Should you bring the road up to a better condition?
It's got to be regraded.
It would hit different areas of qualify. At a certain level, you would qualify to be plowed by the community if the highway director, select board, and town meeting were to do their parts of the written policy, which is online and I can send to you if you provide your email after. Further than that, with even more work, you could do as Streeter Road did. It was a battle, and sometimes I think I would rather go in front of Congress than try to get a small town road accepted in many rural communities, but you can do it.
I guess my question is that since it's basically a dead-end road, is there any chance that the town would accept that?
How much fight you got in you?
Well, which road was it?
It's not a road. We're all 5 families that live on Old Westminster Road, right before Streeter. All our land is bisected by a right-of-way that cuts through. So officially, our land is actually, Old Westminster. So,
So it's not a,
it's 5 different properties.
Yeah.
And they're all bisected by a road that was put in probably.
oh, so it's like a long driveway? It's not actually a roadway?
No, it's a road. It's a road. It's a road. In fact,
it's on the list.
It's
no,
not
it's not on the list. But,
It is not.
but I'm just saying, asking the question, if we spent the money to upgrade the road, public use, what would that really mean? I mean, nobody would be on that road unless they had, deliveries or visiting someone. Is that, what does the term public use actually mean?
This is a conversation we can get into. I don't necessarily believe this is the proper
all right, just
vehicle for that conversation, but if you want to call in anytime, I can figure that out with you, and you can weigh the time and investment versus the possibility of it going, but I do think it would be an uphill battle.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you.
More so for the straight approval than the private way plowing.
Yeah.
Right. Anything else? Vin, go ahead.
Vin Ritchie, 1 Clark Road. Is it appropriate to speak to both of these articles?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Both very similar, but one has both of them have two caveats that have to be considered. First of all, Plumtree Lane was developed by a gentleman who also developed Dogwood Road North and Dogwood Road South, and allegedly Laurel, but that never came to pass. The people on Plumtree Lane were, quite frankly, neglected by the town of Hubbardston Planning Board, who allowed that to happen and allowed it to be finished without the appropriate safeguards in place, and therefore they've been stuck up there for a long time. Now, the people on Dogwood North and South had a similar situation, but we were able to work our way around that and get the developer to release the easement, and the residents, brought the proposal forward for town acceptance of the road, and that worked out to their benefit. Plumtree Lane has never had that advantage, and in fact, I believe part of the land that it borders on has either been deeded to the state or is still in private hands. So I guess I have a little bit more compassion for the people on Plumtree, and I would agree with we have some kind of obligation to plow their road. However, on Printers Brook Road, there is in fact no such place. There is no such road in existence. And in 1997, a gentleman named Paul Flagg, resident still of the town of Hubbardston, was the clerk of the planning board. He did an outstanding job compiling the inventory, the road inventory for the town of Hubbardston. And he went through every road and created this immense volume of detail on how to accept the road, what happens afterwards, and it was all reviewed and accepted by the town. In addition to that, he also went ahead and prepared the Hubbardston Road inventory. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but it does list in detail every road in town. Neither Plumtree nor Printers Brook is listed on this list. Plumtree, because this was done in '97, so it preceded their existence. However, they did review the Printers Brook Road, and he comments that it's a common driveway. All right. As I said, neither one of those roads are actually roads, and you don't find them in the town of Hubbardston street list, either from, my last one is 22, but it's not current today either. But finally, and this is where it gets disturbing, because no one's ever apparently researched if we've been plowing Printers Brook Drive over the years, because basically they've been double dipping on it. They have legal frontage on Lombard Road. Every resident along Printers Brook Road gets their road plowed. This is actually a driveway. And if you wanted to investigate the plan of land that was filed at the time that was approved under the subdivision control, this is in the Registry of Deeds. And I'm surprised that if this was not reviewed by the town council, or if it was reviewed by town council, they did not pick this up. But there is a notation on this plan of land filed in the Registry of Deeds in 1996. First of all, it mentions a private drive right-of-way, common driveway. This was done, 86, prior to zoning. We don't allow common driveways anymore. So prior to zoning, this was put in place. But there is a restriction that was registered not only by the planning board, but by the state of the Registry of Deeds, which says the 25-foot wide right-of-way shown hereon shall at all times remain private and is not to be considered as a way, as that term is used in the subdivision control law. So it's a driveway. And I know that, wish to have somebody play my driveway for me. I'd love to have my driveway plowed. Anybody else like having their driveway plowed? And I just don't think that this should continue, and I think this particular, is it 10, should be removed from the,
Could we make a copy of the relevant documentation that you just quoted?
I have it all.
All right, Patricia, could you run a copy of that?
No, you can have it, I made a copy for it.
And thank you, sir. I think that's incredibly relevant and appreciate you bringing to the public hearings.
Another point, then, and you may or may not know this, but a couple of meetings ago, the people of Plumtree Lane, besides some of the other smaller roads, ways, dead ends, etc., came before us, but in the terms of the Plumtree Lane, they've been under the understanding that from the contractor that you alluded to, etc., initially that was supposed to have been a road that was going to be completely brought around, and he never did it. So this is why we're in a little problem with that particular area, because on their part, he owns part of that road. On their part, he was supposed to have made it all the way around, and that never happened. So this is all part of that particular problem.
And that's why I said I have a little bit of sympathy for that situation, because what we went through with the Dogwoods was very, very similar. In fact, it was actually worse, because the zoning is clear. The longest road in town is 500 feet. His proposal was to put the Dogwood Road north end, Dogwood Road south end, connect it with Laurel. We don't even have enough fire hose to get the end of Dogwood Road north. If we have a disaster down there and a tree falls across the road, we can't get to those. He sold Laurel Drive, or whatever it was, 2 days before we were going to consider it as a official road to the state, and he walked away. And he did the same thing with Plumtree. In fact, they went so far, and this is a matter of public record, so I don't want to be speaking out of turn. However, they actually offered to the buyers, original buyers on Dogwood Road north and south, that this was a public way and that would be maintained and taken care of by the town of Hubbardston. A very fraudulent statement at the time. So he did it, got away with it, and we've suffered for that for a long time. We were able to have a long, protracted legal battle with him over the Dogwood Road north and south, because he refused to concede the easement so we could actually even take possession of the land to continue with the road. And I guess that's the situation you have to Plumtree right now. And sooner or later, we were able to get what we wanted. When he wanted to have another lot approved, we refused to perk it, we refused to acknowledge it, and he finally made concessions to it, and gave us the easements on those roads. But like I said, it's a whole different situation than Princess Brook. Princess Brook is just patently a common driveway.
Mr. Johnson, do you have any response to that?
No.
Do you agree that it sounds factual?
I don't know the legality of the terms. I'm sure whatever plan you handed Patricia was, I'm not sure, but I'm...
If I may explain that, and this perhaps will answer some of your questions as well. If you have an A&R lot, which means approval not required under the subdivision zoning law, that means you meet the zoning qualifications in town. 200 feet of frontage, 80,000 square foot of density. If that in fact is what you own, then you are on a road, a legal road, and that is your frontage, and you're entitled to whatever upkeep and maintenance that legal road takes. If, however, your legal frontage is on Lombard Road, but the driveway goes up and accesses all, I don't know how many houses are up there, that's a driveway. It's a common driveway. And as I said, it was done in '86, so it preceded zoning, so therefore it was grandfathered in. But that doesn't make it anything less than a driveway. And it doesn't make it anything more than a driveway. And, we all have driveways, but sadly enough, that's the fact. And if this gentleman's, if your off of Old Westminster and you access those houses up there, you just need to look at where your frontage is. Where does your deed go? Does it go to Old Westminster? If it
Yes,
does,
it does.
then you're on a driveway. And those are just the facts. I mean, there's nothing prejudicial about this, but so be it. And, you know, I just feel like we shouldn't be plowing driveways in town.
Sir, would you identify yourself?
If I may, I thought we were limited to 3 minutes, but anyways. John Healy on Lombard Road. First of all, the town has not been plowing Prentice Brook. We have.
Yes, we
This
did not.
article that came forward,
We didn't say you were being plowed.
somebody did.
No,
No,
Plum
not
Tree
that.
Lane was being plowed.
Okay. Anyway, so I would like basically that to be noted, the fact that we've been plowing it for one thing. At one time, the town did plow that road or that common drive. Those, I think, that article or that paper that Mr. Ritchie put forward or whatever has to do with covenants. And I think the covenants have expired on that, for one thing. The proposal to plow the private way didn't come from us. It came from this piece of paper or whoever did that. We would like to have it done, and I understand the DPW has been up to the road and looked at it, and it complies with what he's looking for.
Thank you. Yes, would you identify yourself, please?
Sure. Sorry. Mark Fleischer, Plum Tree Lane. Thank you very much for your insight on a few things. I'd like to talk to you later. We've been to the last couple of meetings, and we did meet with Travis, looked at the road, and as good citizens of our street, we have trimmed trees and things that were in the areas. I got a couple quotes on some work, even though we do not own the road, and it's thousands of dollars that we just can't afford right now as all the tenants. I haven't been able to talk to everyone, although we did have a meeting on Monday with most of the residents of the road. Unfortunately, one resident doesn't attend or respond, but the other 6 have. I'd like to know if it's possible if we can pick up some of the extra millings at DPW and use some of those, because the first quote I received verbally was about $6,000, and I can't go to my neighbors and see if we can all put in $1,000 to do that. So I'd like to know if I can, we can even get the equipment to pick up the millings that they have, if we can access some of that to help fix our road a little bit until the legalities can be figured out.
I'll let Director Brown speak to that, but I think that would be opening up a can of worms that would end up being a pretty big cost for the town. Travis, would you like to speak to that question?
Apparently not.
Member Monroe?
I just want to say, I think we're going a little bit deeper into the weeds here. So with our 2 articles, as we discussed previously at our select board meetings, we have a list of criteria for determination on whether or not we proceed with putting roads forward to the town for consideration to plow those roads. I think, based on our initial assessment, for the most part, both of those roads met the criteria with the required paperwork in and the requisite minimum needs by the DPW or the highway superintendent. And I think at this point, I think we're getting a little bit too into the weeds on the conversations of this article.
Okay, all right, one more time, and Vince, go ahead.
Just a balance-off question to Mr. Healy's point. He's correct. In 1990, Paul Flagg mentions this in his inventory, and I lost my place right now. Paul says both selectmen voted 11/26/90 and 12/3/90 to plow and sand this common driveway. 3/24/97 show common driveways. That's his quote. So they did once upon a time, but that was, I guess, the selectmen's decision to choose to do that.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, any final things on these articles?
Mr. Chair, can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Noting that everybody here seems to have come for the warrant, may I suggest that you take warrant items out of order and do them after you close the public hearing?
Okay, trying to find it here. Which item are you talking about?
6A and 6B.
Okay, taking, and
It's up to you.
we have to,
That is my recommendation to you, because I know some of these fine people are going to wait for that, and
all right, because
6A and 6B.
as it's on the agenda to the board, we're reversing the order in which we're taking these. Instead of A as it is, A will be the second discussion, B will be the first one that we will have.
no, sir, it was corrected right here.
Oh, it was, I'm
It is-
looking at
it is correct
this
on the
morning's
warrant.
copy, all right.
Yep.
Okay,
It is
thank
correct
you.
on the agenda.
Okay, thank you, all right. Yeah, okay, so what we would have to do first would be to close the public hearing, and then we can get to the order of our specific agenda. So if no one has anything else on these articles, could I have a motion to close and adjourn the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you.
And Mr.
Heather?
Fleischer, Director Brown couldn't get himself off mute, but he said, no, we cannot give away millings to anyone. They are for town use only.
Okay. I just want people to know that we're trying to do what we can. That's
It
the
is
point.
appreciated.
Appreciate that too. All right, there's motion made second, and seeing no questions, all in favor? Once again, Heather?
Aye.
Okay, I'm doing a voice vote since she's not with us.
All votes have to be voice votes.
Yeah,
Since Heather
okay,
is-
so Heather, Katie?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Jeff? Yes. The public hearing, and we thank you, is adjourned. And those of you who do have any interest on these other two items that Nate was referring to, we will deal with these as we move on. So if there's anyone who needs to leave now, please feel free to, and then we will continue. Thank you.
Yeah, can we take a 5-minute recess, Mr. Chair?
All right, we'll take a 5-minute recess. Okay, I'm going to reconvene the select board meeting, so those of you who are going to leave, please do so. Thank you. And those of you who are staying. Okay, we're going to item 6 in the agenda under new business. A, the select board recommendations on the warrant articles. So I open it up to any member of the board in terms of any of your comments or that you have on, we should probably deal with, you said the people are here specifically for, no, they left. I think.
Most of the people left, not
Okay,
everybody.
so do you want to take them in order, or?
I say go in order, just so
Okay.
we don't confuse ourselves.
So let's deal with Article 1. Examining exemption of town-owned administrative buildings from firearm prohibited areas.
Honestly, if you want my 2 cents, I think we stay neutral on it because the whole purpose of this was to allow the residents to vote. That was the initial reasoning why we brought it up. At least my 2 cents was to bring it up to the people, to allow the residents to take up which side they wanted for this. Now, I do agree, especially after having some of the people speak, that we need to put the areas that we are talking about specifically somehow in here so they can Are they à la carte or whatever?
I mean, all these so-called municipal
Yeah,
buildings.
which ones are, yeah, what specifically?
If you look at the alternate article,
Yeah.
Attorney Carolyn gave us the outline of how to do that. So
Okay.
I can do that. And
yeah.
The way I wrote it up tonight, you guys are signing what is just the sheet.
The blank, so we can
still
fix it.
change.
Oh,
the-
so we can still,
Yeah.
So
But
I-
I would like to be told what to put there.
Yes, I think we need to have the alternate to put the pieces in there. Hold on, let me read it. To see if the town will vote to designate specific town administrative buildings or offices exempt from being classified as prohibited areas, in quotations, for firearm possession pursuant to section 124, chapter 135 of the Acts of 2024 as specific under GLC section gobbledygook, including the Slade Building and town administrator offices within the library, or
Those are
alternatively,
notes.
oh, that's,
You can decide what that says.
okay, we can fix, well, that's what I mean, we need to, I think
or
we should
take
put
any
the-
other action related. I mean, that means if we were gonna be picking and choosing, we
Yeah.
had,
I think we should have them listed like this, and I think we should like, the select board should have no one way or the other,
Well,
because
I-
it's,
Can I speak?
yeah, just, well, are you-
well, no, I'm fine with having a conversation.
No, I think if you say you're gonna be neutral, then just leave it alone.
Well, I say we put the buildings in there though, because I feel like some people are gonna wanna pick and choose which buildings.
So we got 1, 2,
No, we
3, 4,
Yeah, did
5.
you wanna look
no,
at
plus all
that?
the DPWs.
Yeah,
Well, that's
DPW.
5 buildings.
Katie, if we were to leave it that way, I can ensure that a list of all
What other be
buildings
underneath?
will be either placed under it, if applicable, or at least put in the summary document that is given to everybody at the
Okay.
meeting, so that the information will be available, because it would be a nightmare if it wasn't.
That's what I'm saying,
Right.
it needs to be right there in front of
Yeah.
people. So, that's my personal 2 cents.
All right.
I don't know how you all
So I
feel.
think if we left it broad, I could provide a à la carte
Yeah.
menu for discussion.
Well, yes, list the locations. What are the locations? Do we know them off the top of our head?
The Slade Building, the town administrative, so that would be the town administrative, the
I
library,
read them all.
the DPW, got 48 Gardner Road, and the fire station. Station 1.
So there's 5?
Did you take in the library?
Yes,
And rec field, there was a question mark.
Not the rec field.
not the rec field.
Okay, plus the,
Are you separating, are you using the library as a whole, or the town office downstairs?
That's up to you.
Library as a whole. Yes. I agree with that. Keep the article inclusive of those 5 properties in their entirety. But list those 5.
It will be listed in
locations.
the final revision.
okay, that seems like a plan. Anybody have anything else on that one? And you, so you do that, you can get that on.
I will 100% do that. Yep.
Okay. Good. All right.
You still need to determine if the board is staying neutral or taking a position on the
Oh,
board.
yeah.
Please note that if, regardless, if neutral and the whole board said that they wanted to be neutral, I would note it as, it's gonna have the numbers next to it. So, select board recommends 4-1-0, or like, there will be numbers, and I could even go as far, if it was important to somebody, to put who was what. So,
Are we gonna vote on it, or what are we gonna do? Are we going neutral? Are we gonna? I think we need a discussion.
I think we should stay neutral, just because I feel like the original purpose was to bring it to the town folks to have, say their piece. We can still vote
I think if we were
individually.
neutral, it wouldn't even be on the agenda here.
See, I don't feel that way.
Really?
Yeah. I feel like I'm going to vote my way when we hold our cards up.
Oh, right. But as for,
I think,
for the people,
yes,
yes,
As the
neutral,
people,
for the
yeah.
people, yes. I agree with that.
Okay.
Jeff, Heather did have.
Heather, go ahead.
I agree. Short and simple.
Okay.
What does Chris say? Chris hasn't weighed in.
Yeah, same.
And I think I agree also, so. Should we put it back in the form
Yes,
of a
take
motion?
yeah. And remember that since Heather is virtual, all votes are voice.
Yeah,
Right.
So you need
She's
a
on
motion?
Yes, we need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that for Article 1, the select board stays neutral.
Motion made.
Second.
And second.
And to amend by putting in
Oh,
the
yes.
5 buildings
Yeah.
as stated by member Perego that I know. Like,
Yes, what he said.
As
Was
amended.
Say second.
As amended,
As
yes.
amended, okay.
5
So,
buildings or more.
made,
come
second.
under another one.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, and this is a vote, roll call, so Peter,
Aye.
Chris,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Jeff, yes. Heather?
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. So. All right, let's move to Article 2, amendment to the animal control officer definition in town bylaws. And there was one request that had been presented to us to have the general bylaws included on that.
yeah, I will put town general bylaws.
Town, okay, town general bylaws, okay. Any comments or anything on that from anybody?
I would say we agree with it
Okay,
as a select board. Approve. Or
Okay.
what's the word I'm looking
Motion to
for?
recommend.
Recommend, thank you.
to
Jesus.
recommend, yep.
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we recommend Article 2 with the inclusive of the, putting the general bylaw.
Town general bylaws,
Yeah.
okay.
Second.
Motion made and second, any further discussion? None? All in favor? Oh, excuse me, Heather?
Aye.
Katie?
Aye.
Chris?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Jeff, yes. So moved. Passed. Okay. Go to Article 3, the police cruiser replacement. Again, it was requested that we put in the model of the car with the Blazer.
No more hot tub time.
So
I recommend.
with that
She
suggestion,
recommends.
2024 Chevrolet Blazer.
And I will
All-wheel
place
drive.
that. I will place that in the article.
okay? So with that, can we have a motion to, unless there's any other discussion involved on that? Go ahead, Peter.
So that 65 includes outfitting?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Wait, I have a quick question. Sorry. What if, so you said there's one left, he has one left.
He has that vehicle left, but that's not the only dealership that I have to go through.
Okay, I was just wondering
I
if you
just
put
need
it
to have
into
to
this
go-
article that it's the Chevy Blazer with all of these, and then you go to purchase it and it's no longer available. Does that pigeonhole him?
Well,
Well, he's not getting a Tahoe.
Well, he's not getting,
Correct.
I understand
Right.
that.
So,
Sorry.
if it's gone, I mean, the next vehicle's not gonna be 65 unless he finds the exact replacement.
A 2025 Blazer will not be $65,000.
Right, it'll be 7,500
It will be
more.
more.
Yeah.
Okay, I just didn't want,
Outfitted.
I don't want to pigeonhole you that you have to get that exact make model
Alright.
one that's on that one dealership lot.
I would just need to go through somebody that's on the state bid list, that's all.
Yeah.
So you just wanna
And
stay
there's
with the
more
money
than one
amount?
dealership out there with.
I don't know. I think you should name the vehicle.
I'm competent in the chief's ability with my help procuring a 2024 Blazer as described.
Okay, I just,
When was the last time you talked to him about this particular car?
Last week or the week before.
He drives by it every day.
He's aware that so they are aware that it needs to go through the town meeting. So he has the vehicle. So
I'm gonna hold it for you.
Can we just,
well, they can only do so much as far as. But,
Give him $1,000 out of your pocket.
no, thank you.
Well, you don't want a vehicle.
Well, I do, but.
have a motion for every one of them?
All right, moving right along.
Yeah. No, we gotta do each one.
Okay, all right.
We gotta do each one.
Anything else on the police cruiser?
Nope.
Could we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to, recommend, recommend Article 3 and put in that the type of vehicle.
Include the Blazer.
I
Yes.
will also place 2/3 majority back in there. I don't know where it went.
Oh, by a
Fell out?
2/3 majority
Yeah, fell
vote. Okay.
Second.
And seconded, okay, any discussion? Okay. Oh, okay, Heather?
Aye.
Katie?
Aye.
Chris?
Yes.
Peter?
Aye.
Jeff? Yes, okay. Article 4, allocation for civic optimized implementation. Are there any further questions or discussion on this? If not, could we have a motion to?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend Article 4.
Motion made, is there a second?
Second.
And second, okay. Any discussion on this?
One last discussion on this.
Go.
So you say we have monies available through grant to pay for this?
We have money. through
50% of it, or whatever?
Yeah.
Half of it?
Yep.
So,
Well, if you, I outlined in that letter what we have.
Yeah.
So annually, this is neutral. Like after this initial implementation cost, it is a neutral service.
Okay.
The town is aligned very, very well with the potential to get a grant that makes this unnecessary. But in order to sign the documents that I am requesting tonight, we need funding of some sort.
so neutral for the life of the remainder of the contract?
Yes.
The contract 3
3
years?
years, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right, motion has been made on second. Heather?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Jeff? Yes. Article 5, allocation for e-codification services. Are any questions on this?
Negative.
Seeing none, could we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend Article 5.
Motion made
Second.
and second. Any further discussion or questions? Seeing none. Heather?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Jeff? Yes. Okay. Article 6, landfill testing and mowing reimbursement. Any further questions or comments on this?
Just future
Throw it
comments,
away.
we need to look at DCR, like just not paying them anymore, you know? This, we
flushing
shouldn't
it
be
down
paying
the
this.
toilet.
We should not be paying this.
They haven't
Okay.
done this one. Like
I'm just-
we're up to date with these. with
Well,
the
what
bills.
happens if we just don't pay it?
Yeah, were they gonna take more land from us?
I'm just saying, what happens if we don't pay it? That's my question. If we just throw the bill back at DCR and say, not our problem.
I think you'd finally get their attention.
They double the fine that we're paying for the lot 57. Like,
What's new? Well, that's what I'm saying. That's the one thought that I have, is that they'd find us somehow, or try to, you know, one way or the other, they'd get the money. But realistically, I'm on the boat of, we need to get DCR to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, at least an end-of-life type thing for
Yeah.
this.
Especially seeing that they won't let
At
us
some
split.
point, you don't produce methane gas anymore, once everything's done rotting.
and after getting through tomorrow, I do begin writing the legislative priorities to propose to you guys. I will ensure that that is not our top one,
No.
but one of them.
Tell them we're gonna put some green items on that land, see what they say.
Then, again, if I might ask you, you mentioned that the land in itself is owned by DCR, correct? And
That is correct.
were you just a kind of attacking windmill, so to speak, when you guys were trying to make an issue out of it? Did they ignore you the same way they apparently are ignoring this generation now?
Well, actually, the board ignored me, and nobody would challenge it. from the board.
Which board? One of
The
our...
Board of Health, yeah.
Oh, the Board of Health? Oh.
They just kept appropriating the 9,000, or taking it out of the budget. And there is a gentleman, I believe,
That's easy.
Templeton, that monitors the engineer.
Yes, Mr. Papa.
I've never seen the results, by the way, so maybe, to Katie's point, you might want to, or Peter's point, you might want to look at the results to see what actually is and what actually isn't. But quite frankly, by the time they figured out we didn't pay them for that, I think that, what are they gonna do?
Right.
I really.
Take the land
I
by
don't think
eminent
there's any-
domain.
Yeah, you can have, it's already
Yeah.
yours. It's all yours.
You know, I don't think there's any, and the other part of it is it's right along the Natty Pond Brook. And I've heard no reports of contamination in the brook either. So, you know, it may be a moot point at this point. It's just one of these, sounds like one of these things that are gonna be perpetuated until somebody says, hey, enough is enough, we're not paying it.
Was that taken by DCR after the dump, or was
they
it
own it.
always DCR land and we had a dump on it and they didn't care?
Yep.
Really?
Well, they approved it,
Well, back then it was different, I understand that.
but once it was filled up by a developer I won't name, it was filled up with.
Is it the same one that?
Yeah, that-
It was filled up with a lot of contaminated material, and then they went in and shut it right down. So it wasn't a very pleasant situation, but I don't think,
It's like
and it's literally has to have been 40 years.
Yeah, 'cause I was like 6, so. Not to date myself,
All right.
but yeah.
You had to say
The
that.
gift,
didn't
the
you?
gift's on. keeps
You're
on
welcome.
giving.
Sort of like syphilis.
All right, thanks, Vin. All right, then, any other comments on this one? Can we have a motion? Or not?
I don't want to pay it. Do we actually have the bill, or is this to test it?
We don't have a bill because we haven't done it yet, because
Okay,
the
so-
Board of Health is sticking in their heels on that they paid last year and want
I don't
help.
think the Board of Health should pay it. I don't think we should pay it. I don't think any of us should pay it. I think DCR should pay it,
Well-
is my personal 2 cents.
I think you need to put the money aside just in case, you know, in 4 years when they come back, you owe 20,000. Oh, it hasn't been tested, so I don't, there's gotta be fines involved, and fines could be more than what we
I
gotta
know,
pay.
that's what I'm worried about.
Or is this fines? This 5290 is fines
No,
and testing?
That's to get it tested.
Okay, so that's just,
So what's the feeling of the board? To
Okay, so if,
put it on the warrant or to remove it?
I'm gonna be neutral on this one.
I think you're gonna dig into it after this.
Absolutely.
All right, so I say this is our last time paying it, and you figure out how to get us out of it. That's your job.
Yeah, if you want.
Good luck with that. All right, so I'm gonna move reluctantly to recommend Article 6.
That'd be rough.
Second.
Yeah.
Was that a second, Heather?
Second.
All right, thank you. Motion made and second. Any other comments or discussion? All right, Heather?
Aye.
Katie?
Aye.
Reluctantly.
Yes, reluctantly.
Chris?
Yes.
Peter?
Aye.
Jeff? Yes. All right. Article 7.
Reluctantly.
Yes, you can put reluctantly all across the whole thing.
Article 7, transfer DPW garage roof repair funds. Any questions or further discussion on this? If not, could we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend Article 7.
Motion made.
Second.
And second. Any discussion, further questions? Seeing none. All in favor? Heather?
Aye.
Katie?
Aye.
Chris?
Yes.
Peter?
Aye.
Jeff? Yes. Okay. Article 8, payment of prior year bills. Heather, you had all your questions on this one taken care of, correct?
So we listed out all the bills, Nate. Do we have an idea of why we accumulated these and didn't have them caught to encumber them?
There are a variety of reasons.
Do we have policies and practices that we're working on putting in place so we don't have a repeat?
We have policies and practices in place so that we don't have a repeat. I'm hoping that with the staff now trained, and I have also expressed the severity of me not wanting to repeat this because it doesn't look great. So yes, I am hoping for a not a repeat.
So like these things happen, but they generally generate quite substantial debate on town meeting floor. I've seen almost an hour of debate in the past for a $20 bill or a past year bill, but It's crazy. That being said, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we recommend this article.
Thank you. Article made and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Heather?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Jeff? Yes. Thank you. Article 9. Should we take them both at the same time?
No.
Okay, fine. Article 9, the plowing of the private way for Plumtree Lane. Is there any further questioning or discussion on this? Seeing none, could we have a motion?
I would like to make a motion that we stay neutral for Article 9 and not recommend or not any, just put it on there.
Okay, motion has been made to
Second.
be, and seconded to remain
Second.
neutral as a board. I'm sorry, Heather?
I was seconding as
Oh.
Peter was seconding.
Okay, fine.
The two
Peter
seconds.
So,
So I guess I third.
okay. Any more discussion on this? Okay, Heather?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Chris?
No.
Peter?
Yes.
Jeff, yes. Motion passes 4-1. No. No.
So, Chris, where do you want to be put in the tally? Because the vote was to be neutral.
Right. I want to be put as yes.
Okay.
To recommend?
To recommend.
To recommend, thank you.
Okay, it's 4 neutral and 1 recommendation, okay? Okay, Article 10, plowing of the private way, Printers Brook Road. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, I got a lot.
Go ahead.
I mean, I think there's too much intel that came out about
Yeah.
this to move forward with it.
Because it's a driveway, basically?
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, if they own frontage on Lombard, which I did not previously know, I don't think it was mentioned when we had a meeting with them last.
Mr. Chair, in light of, like, I'll take the hit so that you guys don't have to make a motion that would be seen as unfavorable. I recommend that we remove this article from the warrant.
Okay, do you want us to make a motion to do that, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, there is a question, there is a comment from the.
I'm sorry, who? Oh, Vin.
I just want a point of order that, I'm sorry, a point of order, that perhaps you could seek legal counsel's advice on what eligible private ways, the definition is. And that would solve some problems down the road as
Yes.
well. And pending that, it would also apply to Article 9. But, you know,
There's enough involved in Article 9 where it's probably pertinent to just keep it for now.
that's fine. I just make that recommendation, that's all.
Well, when we were discussing this a couple of meetings ago, when they were here, one of the things that we did bring out, and Travis mentioned, and I mentioned also, my understanding of, there were 3 areas, public use, that the people maintain the road so that we're not doing damage to our DPWs. Those were the 3 requirements that came up. So if there's anything beyond that, we haven't mentioned anything beyond those. Do you agree with that? Those were the ones that we mentioned? Yeah. So that's,
So,
That's fine.
so, I mean, you can't have public use on a
on a dead end.
on a driveway.
Yeah.
If it's.
Well, no, he was just mentioning we should have the requirements. I'm simply saying this was our understanding when we
Well, I
talked
mean-
about this before.
Yeah, I mean, Travis has to accept it or not accept it, and, I mean, I don't know. I'd like to see the history on this, because I haven't seen it.
Well, his 2 major concerns for Travis was obviously the money issue and the condition of the roads that he was going to be asked to
Right.
plow
And there's
that might
nothing
do
wrong with
damage
it.
to the
Nothing
vehicles.
wrong with the driveway,
Right.
so
No.
whatever it is.
Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mike Stahl, 5 Lombard Road. I would request that there be clarification on the criteria that was used on this, whether or not the current property owner for the road was counted in the determination of whether or not this road, private way, met all the criteria.
Are you talking about 9 or 10?
Which one?
I'm sorry, Article 9. I apologize.
We are doing a lot of research into
Trying to find 'em.
Plumtree, and in addition to that, I do plan on reviewing the entirety of the policy and guidance that we take up every 3 years to consider private way plowing and bringing it back to the select board as part of our policy review timeline, which is going on for this whole year.
Plus, we also strongly felt because of the, were you at that meeting when we were just talking?
I believe I was at
Okay.
at least one, if not two
All right.
meetings at this.
All the legalese that came up, et cetera, and the question marks that came up, we felt that, as I believe Nate said earlier tonight, it's November now, we didn't want to just leave these people because some of these problems weren't their fault. So that's why, as I understand this, should this pass, but the town, this is just for a year.
Yes.
This is just for 1 year, and then they have to reapply and get a...
Because they don't have all 6.
But those were the thoughts that we had that
Yeah.
brought us to this particular point of wanting to take care of them for that.
Can I follow up?
Yes,
on
go
that?
ahead.
Okay, and I understand all of that because it's not the first time I'm hearing it. However, what I haven't heard yet, and for the benefit of the townspeople that are going to vote on this, and for transparency, was there any consideration given to this other piece of property that some people in town feel should be considered as to whether or not Plumtree Lane met all the criteria? Because there's one property owner, and as I recall, it has to be 100% of the property owners.
As it's written, yes.
Okay, thank you.
As the person who collected all of the affidavits from all the property owners, the one holdout property did actually send in her application and her deed to be plowed. She just hasn't come to any of the public forums, but she did send in all of her information that she does support it to be plowed. So we got everyone's back 6 for 6.
Okay.
Okay, may I follow up again?
Go ahead.
I think if you look, there's another 7th property. The Richards property was...
Oh no, that's what I meant. I'm sorry. I meant 7 for 7. We got the Richards property.
Thank you.
It went to the wrong mailbox.
Okay,
So
thank you.
no problem.
All right.
Appreciate it, Mr. Chair.
All right. So. Is that
So
it?
what are we doing with 10? Is that being pulled?
It's up to you.
Yep.
Okay. We haven't decided.
We need a motion to do that at the recommendation of the town administrator to pull.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion at the recommendation of the town administrator to pull Article 10.
Motion made, is there a second?
Second.
And second, discussion, questions? Did you have-
Discussion, what's the reason what's the specific reason we're pulling it?
Because there's questions on whether or not it's a driveway. Because their legal frontage is Lombard Road, so therefore, this road technically isn't a road, it's a driveway. So we would be plowing people's driveways, which is,
We're
That's
setting
an
a
awful
bad
precedent.
precedent. That would be
Yeah.
a bad precedent
But
to
we
set.
did do it in the past.
apparently back in
And
the
that-
90s.
And I am hoping to look into all of the private ways to determine legally what can and cannot be plowed by the community as a part of our review. I do not have that right now. I would like to thank Mr. Ritchie for bringing the documents that he brought forward here this evening.
Okay. Ben?
Just as a point of order, it was plowed in the past, but on the vote of a select board, not town meeting.
Right.
And there's a distinction on that, so.
How far
Town
back?
meeting-
How far
He
back?
said 1990.
Sorry?
How far back then?
1990,
Oh, no. Okay.
So we're talking long ago.
but a town meeting sets a more enforceable precedent.
Yeah, I mean, still taxpayer dollars, so.
Mr. Chair, Heather has her hand raised.
Heather, go ahead.
I guess my only concern
Can't hear you.
is that,
Can't hear you.
can you hear me now?
No.
No.
Did something happen on our end?
Really?
It's whatever you changed on your end, Heather.
Plug your headphones in.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't do anything. I think it's on your end, but that's okay. So I was just gonna say, my only concern is that with the residents not here and, having gone through the public forums for this piece, although I think there might be some additional information to look into, because we had already committed at a prior meeting to put this on the warrant, I think my recommendation would be to continue putting it on the warrant. And if we find solid information and have had an opportunity to inform the residents entirely of that, and everyone's good to go, then I think we pass over it at town meeting. But I guess I'm not comfortable with pulling it at this point where we've already committed to doing it. And then I think Nate's already doing the work of figuring out, what we have for private roads and how we've come up with that list.
From a financial standpoint, I'm going to go as far as to say I don't think the town is in financial straits to be taking on $10,000 worth of kindness.
I don't disagree with you, Nate, but I think that's a decision that, we said, listen, this is the criteria requires to get to the next level. The next level is to the town meeting. Town meeting is the residents of the town of Hubbardston to make the decision on how they wish to proceed. And in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, right, I don't feel comfortable saying we committed to this a few weeks ago, to putting it forward to the townspeople, not necessarily saying, we support, we don't support, but saying it should be the town meeting vote, where it's determined on whether or not we support this and that it gets plowed. But that's just my opinion.
Well, we can't, just to play devil's advocate, if we put this forward and it's deemed a driveway, we have just set precedent for a whole bunch of stuff that I don't want to go down that slippery slope. I don't want the town to be stuck in a lurch. Because
what happens though if we find out that ultimately at the end of the day this does not constitute a driveway, and that now we don't have the funding available, and now we're not going to plow the road that we originally committed to, the opportunity for people to bring it to town meeting to request? Wouldn't it be better to pass over it if we find that information I'm not saying we don't do the research and we don't, Katie, I think it's a great point to make sure we don't set the precedent, but shouldn't we be positive and shouldn't we inform the residents before we pull something?
Well, that's why we were doing it first, but they all left. We were trying to go through them before everybody left.
Sam, their representative and liaison that has been working with us, did seem quite aware when he stated that he had no response to Mr. Ritchie's information being brought forth.
Well, why don't we just keep it on there, or vote to put it on, but we gotta dig into it. We got 15 days to figure it out, right? When do we have to sign off on the warrant? Day before vote?
Today.
No, we got signed today. That's what we're doing
Well,
tonight.
we can modify.
On the floor, yes.
Yes.
Well, that's what Heather's recommending, is we pull it on the floor.
Okay.
Can we just
But that has
pull
to
it
go
and
to
not
a vote to the public,
It would
correct?
have
to
to,
go to the public? And that's where I'm saying,
and the motion would be to not do, yeah.
Pass over it.
and then there goes precedence if people don't understand
Correct.
what we're saying.
Well,
Yeah, but if we can do a motion, I guess if we have the opportunity to talk to people, especially the folks from that road, they understand, hey, we've looked into it further. We had concern that was raised that it's potentially a common driveway. And because if it was a common driveway and the frontage was elsewhere, it doesn't seem like it would be fair to do this. And, we'd like to move forward with doing a motion to pass over it. At least we can communicate that to the residents at the time. And it doesn't feel like, if we don't get to them first, they see the posting of the warrant, all of a sudden, they remember 2 weeks ago, we told them this was going on there, they see it, now it's not on there.
Well, I would imagine the first thing that Nate's gonna do is send everyone on that street an email
Yeah.
saying,
Well,
what is going on.
it was brought to us as a private way, and we find out it's considered a driveway.
Yeah, there are questions as to if this is a common driveway. Allow the town to, in the same vein that we are helping Plumtree or proposing to help Plumtree, keep it the way it is for another year. We'll keep on record that you applied and met the standard, and should it come to us legally that this is a private way, we'll consider it next time. Like, there are questions to be answered. I don't think we throw the entirety of the proposal out, but at this time, we do not have enough information to make a informed decision.
So specifically, if I understand that, let's say, with what you're saying, is we leave it on the warrant, but make it clear that, saying with Article 9, as we did, we'll take care of them this year.
No. My suggestion is to take it off of the warrant.
But to take it off,
and do the due diligence on the back end. And if it comes to light that it is legally a private way, don't make them jump through the hoops next year, and we'll just put it on an annual town meeting or a special town meeting in the future.
Okay.
Well, you still got,
Why don't we mitigate our exposure and change it to a one-year situation like Article 9?
Because then you're still setting precedent of plowing a driveway.
Yeah.
If it's a driveway,
But then they would have to come back
doesn't matter.
the next year because it would only be a one-year commitment.
No, what's Katie saying, it doesn't matter because we will have done a driveway. so
They're going
other
to have to,
driveways
they're
have come
going to
before
have,
us,
in one
okay?
year,
So-
what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
they're going to have to reapply to be plowed again. And when we review it in 1 year, we can hopefully have the information to determine what this actually is and if it even qualifies to be plowed.
Playing devil's advocate here, what happens when everyone in town submits their driveway as a private way?
I'm submitting mine.
And we have to then
Oh, it's
approve
not.
it to take the time to legally review if it is or is not a private way.
It's a dangerous,
can't do for thee without doing for we.
dangerous step. Then, yes,
Yes, and just to that point, it's also amendable on town floor, and
Right, that's, he said for.
you may have very many amendments to that particular one.
Yeah.
At least, but if you have a driveway.
That's it.
My vote, I say leave it on there. And we got 2 weeks to figure out whether it's a driveway or a private way.
all right
And
then.
if we don't find out, if we don't find out, I mean, we need to find out
We
in
will
2
find
weeks.
out.
Well, let's see how the board is, because we have a motion made and second to pull it,
Yeah.
correct?
Okay.
So we need to deal with that motion right now in terms of doing that or not. If so, then if it's a no, then we will open that up to what
Okay.
other
so-
suggestions, okay? So,
So we're gonna do a vote on
yeah.
pulling it.
Is
Okay.
is that clear, Heather? Did you hear what I said?
Yep, I did.
Okay, so I'm going to call the question and we'll take a roll call vote on the motion, which is to pull the article.
Correct.
And nothing else was said on that other than, okay. So, Heather,
No.
1 no. Katie,
Yes.
Chris,
No,
2 no's. Peter,
No.
3 no's. Jeff, yes. So we will not be pulling the article.
Following the precedence of Article 9, I'm assuming the motion is for the board to remain neutral,
No.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make that motion.
because that's what.
An additional motion?
I would make the motion to remain neutral on Article 10.
On top of what we just voted.
Well, it's on the article, it's on the warrant still, you
Okay.
kept it on the warrant, so now,
Okay.
now we have to finish what you were doing of going through and making recommendations on the articles.
Okay. So a motion then to remain neutral has been put forth. Is there a second?
yes.
And seconded. Any discussion? Okay. Heather?
Yes.
Katie?
No.
Chris?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Peter, yes. Oh, I'm sorry, what was your vote?
Mine was no.
No, okay. And, yes. So once again, Heather, what was your vote?
Everybody was a yes, I was
It's neutral
no.
with one.
Okay,
and
so
it's
four,
one leaning
3
no.
yeses, 1 no, and 1,
No, there was 4 yes. You voted yes.
4 yeses, no,
Four yes.
1
I
no.
thought, Chris, what did you vote?
Sorry, you voted yes.
I voted yes.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
sorry.
I was the only no.
Okay.
So are we pending any information on that, or is it just?
Yes, we're gonna get all the information about it, and we're gonna,
Hope
if we
to
need
God.
to, if we find something out that wants us to change what we just decided, we'll talk about it on town meeting floor.
Correct, okay.
Okay,
I'm
that
hoping
takes,
to have the legal grounding to either come to you and say legally we can't, and then it's done.
Right.
I hope so.
But if not, it'll be at the chat. It'll be a nice legislative chat.
So,
That's what democracy is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
plowing driveways.
so do we still need a motion?
Yes, we need a
to close this
motion.
part of it?
We need a motion to
As the-
sign the warrant.
Well, that's on the next item, but this thing for recommendations where we would.
We already did
No, you're
that.
done.
So since
Yep.
it's, that'll be redundant,
I'd
okay.
like to make a motion.
Okay, this is new business. Hey, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to sign the special town meeting warrant.
Motion's made to sign
Second.
the warrant. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? Any questions? Okay, Heather,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Peter,
Yeah.
Jeff, yes, so we will sign the warrants.
Heather, do you think you're going to be able to make it here by, say, midday tomorrow, or would you like me just to send the document out?
I think I'll make it there before 8 a.m. because it's voting.
All right.
Oh, there you go.
Thanks for reminding.
Don't forget to vote.
I will vote after I walk for 5 miles.
I have a 7:30 unnecessary haircut, so I'll leave it on the table.
You can leave it with me.
All right. Is it unnecessary?
There's no school tomorrow, so I'll be here early.
Yeah, there's no school. I had to vote. Bring my son down and vote. Guys, vote together.
Can you vote in the town?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, he sits on the
was-
board.
He was on, yeah.
He sits up on the other side of the table, don't you remember? Because he's fancy.
We're talking, I realized we didn't save any time by moving this forward to
No,
5:30 because
no.
of last night's clock change.
Yeah.
So we technically just started at the same time as we would have started yesterday.
Yeah.
Like,
All right. I want to select the people who are sticking around.
Is there anything you all are here for left?
Do you
That's
want a
important
specific item? Because
on your list?
there is one thing I know that we have to get to tonight. I would like to, that would be the executive session.
So the only
So-
things I would like you to vote on are the contracts, the grant, the designer selection committee, and executive session. The policies can be pushed off another.
What about holidays?
Okay.
And
Consent
like,
agenda.
and the consent agenda is easy.
All right, well,
Mr. Chair, I suggest that we table the old policies from the policy review, and everything else, there is a timely aspect to it.
okay, then, all right, that's fine, we'll table that. Trying to find it so I can make a note to myself on that, the policies, here we go. Table. Everything else, I guess we should take up. All right, then,
Super fun. Everybody's leaving.
the risk of being confused, now we're going to go back to anyone here for open session.
Oh, Jesus. Let that go.
Okay, and now announcements. Katie?
No, we're gonna skip that. It's too late.
Skipping that.
There's nobody here.
Okay, we have a consent agenda, 2 specific items. Under A, we were all present for all of these meetings, so approval of those minutes. And B, the approval of the 2024 holiday schedule, which is basically Thanksgiving, Christmas, day before each, would be a half a day. So can we,
I'd like to make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'd like to work for the town, that's Valley's day.
motion made?
Second.
And a second. Any discussion or any holds on any of these items that we just mentioned?
Looks good.
Okay, seeing it. Okay, Heather,
Aye.
Katie,
Aye.
Pete,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Jeff, yes, okay. Consent agenda is taken care of. We just took care of those other two. Let's go to item 7, administrative matters. Okay, Nate, if you would.
Mr. Chair, this is a $50,000 grant from the Rural Development Fund as part of the Community One Stop. I would like to thank the Chair of the Planning Board, Tricia, and the Planning Board and other staff members for their assistance with this. What this will do is it will help with a study to create an overlay district that is attractive to the community for the sand pits in the southern side of town,
Down.
east, west, and
That's north.
northern side of town, and it will allow a public period of discussion to determine what, if anything, would be considered in these sand pits. By setting an overlay district, we stop the something like a 40B or things like that. So
Excuse me.
I would like to thank the Commonwealth for this opportunity, and I look forward to this project and ask that you authorize me to sign and accept the grant.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to allow Nate to sign and accept the rural development grant submission.
Second.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion, questions?
Yeah.
Peter?
Just a quick one. So this overlay is only for the section of Pitcherville Road that the sand pit
It's
covers.
not just Pitcherville Road. There's hundreds of acres of privately owned and publicly owned sand pit over
So
there.
it's just an overlay for sand pits,
Yeah,
not commercial properties
no,
or?
this is
okay.
for sand.
Just sand pits, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? All right, take the vote. Heather?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Jeff? Yes. Okay. Item B, agreements for the Civic Plus and Microsoft Office 365.
Want to talk about this some more? I would love to talk about this some
No,
more.
please,
Don't
just
talk
skim it.
this.
Let's
Okay.
go.
So any further questions or discussion on that? If not, can we have a motion to authorize the town administrator to enter agreements for the Civic Plus and Microsoft Office 365 services as presented?
So moved.
Motion made.
Second.
And second. Discussion? Seeing none, take a vote. Heather?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Jeff? Yes. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I recommend that we table old business public meeting policy review,
As well as the annual
as well as
policy
the
review?
annual policy review.
Okay. So, we will do that. So, old business A and B are tabled for
Someday.
future or?
Someday we'll get
the
to
next.
them. I'd say future, because December 18th is the volunteer meeting and the financial forecast presentation. So
You mean
And
November
the next
18th.
November meeting is is that, and also don't forget it's the licensure meeting.
and the
for every-
licensure meeting.
Oh,
Okay. All right, moving on to the town administrator report.
I'm gonna save us the time because I know we have an executive session.
Thank God.
Okay? So,
Mr.
policies to, yeah. go
The
ahead.
designer selection policy, it was recommended that we bring up by Member Monroe, just to ensure that the select board is protected in their rights as the basic design selection final boss, final approval authority. This was quite literally language copied and pasted from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts suggestion. And I ask that you approve the policy and make a second motion naming the Public Safety Building Committee, the Designer Selection Committee for the 48 Gardner Road Public Safety and Municipal Project.
Operation, okay. Any questions on this particular item?
Heather did have her hand raised.
Oh, Heather, go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Nate. I appreciate that you did that. Language looks great. Only question number 9, monitoring and reporting. Town of Hubbardston will evaluate designer performance for each project using the designer selection evaluation form. Did you, were you planning to have an attachment?
It's a state form, yeah.
Okay, I checked. It didn't seem like it was a state form. Seemed like one we have to do, but
We can make one.
that's fine. Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to make a recommendation or make a motion to approve the Hubbardston Designer Selection Policy naming the Public Safety Building
We need two
Committee.
motions.
No, we don't.
Oh, we
We can do
don't?
it that
Okay,
way.
all right, go ahead.
Naming the Public Safety Building Committee as the body for the 48 Gardner Road project, and also extending this approval to Nate's attached evaluation form that he will include.
Would you, a friendly suggestion as opposed to the body, could you put designer selection committee so it's specific?
So amended.
All right, thank you. All right,
Second.
motion made and second. Any questions, any discussion? All right, we'll take a vote. Heather?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Pete? Peter?
Yes. Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Jeff, yes. So moved. Okay. Okay. Matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair. Are there any? Good. Okay.
Vote on.
Public and press. No. All right. At this particular time, let me get what I need to read. We will have a motion to move into the executive session